Уважаемые граждане России, дорогие друзья, сегодня вновь считаю необходимым вернуться к трагическим событиям, происходящим на Донбассе, и ключевым вопросам обеспечения безопасности самой России. Речь о том, что вызывает у нас особую озабоченность и тревогу. О тех фундаментальных угрозах, которые из года в год, шаг за шагом, грубо и бесцеремонно создаются безответственными политиками на Западе в отношении нашей страны. Имея в виду расширение блока НАТО на восток, приближение его военной инфраструктуры к российским границам. Хорошо известно, что на протяжении 30 лет мы настойчиво и терпеливо пытались договориться с ведущими странами НАТО о принципах равной и неделимой безопасности в Европе. В ответ на наше предложение мы постоянно сталкивались либо с циничным обманом и враньем, либо с попытками давления и шантажа. А Североатлантический альянс тем временем, несмотря на все наши протесты и озабоченности, неуклонно расширяется. Военная машина движется. И, повторю, приближается к нашим границам вплотную. Почему все это происходит? Откуда эта наглая манера разговаривать с позиции собственной исключительности, непогрешимости и вседозволенности? Откуда наплевательское, пренебрежительное отношение к нашим интересам и абсолютно законным требованиям? Ответ ясен. Все понятно и очевидно. Советский Союз в конце 80-х годов прошлого века ослаб, а затем и вовсе развалился. Весь ход происходивших тогда событий – это хороший урок для нас и сегодня. Он убедительно показал, что паралич власти, воли – это первый шаг к полной деградации и забвению. Стоило нам тогда на какое-то время потерять уверенность в себе, и все. Баланс сил в мире оказался нарушенным. Это привело к тому, что прежние договоры, соглашения уже фактически не действуют. Уговоры и просьбы не помогают. Все, что не устраивает гегемона, власть придержащих объявляется архаичным, устаревшим, ненужным. И наоборот, все, что кажется им выгодным, преподносится как истина в последней инстанции. Продавливают любой ценой, хамски, всеми средствами. Несогласных ломают через колено. То, о чем сейчас говорю, касается не только России. И не только у нас вызывает озабоченность. Это касается всей системы международных отношений, а подчас даже и самих союзников США. После развала СССР фактически начался передел мира. И сложившиеся к этому времени нормы международного права, а ключевые, базовые из них были приняты по итогам Второй мировой войны и во многом закрепляли ее результаты, стали мешать тем, кто объявил себя победителем в холодной войне. Конечно, в практической жизни, в международных отношениях, в правилах по их регулированию нужно было учитывать и изменение ситуации в мире, и самого баланса сил. Однако делать это следовало профессионально, плавно, терпеливо, с учетом и уважением интересов всех стран, и при понимании своей ответственности. Но нет. В состоянии эйфории от абсолютного превосходства, своего рода современного вида абсолютизма, да еще и на фоне низкого уровня общей культуры и чванства тех, кто готовил, принимал и продавливал выгодные лишь для себя решения. Однако особое место в этом ряду занимает, конечно же, вторжение в Ирак, тоже без всяких правовых оснований. В качестве предлога выбрали якобы имеющуюся у США достоверную информацию о наличии в Ираке оружия массового поражения. В доказательство этого публично, на глазах у всего мира, госсекретарь США тряс какой-то пробиркой с белым порошком, уверяя всех, что это и есть химическое оружие, разрабатываемое в Ираке. А потом оказалось, что все это подтасовка, блеф. Никакого химического оружия в Ираке нет. Невероятно, удивительно, но факт остается фактом. Имело место вранье на самом высоком государственном уровне и с высокой трибуны ООН. А в результате огромные жертвы, разрушения, невероятный всплеск терроризма. Вообще складывается впечатление, что практически везде, во многих регионах мира, куда Запад приходит устанавливать свой порядок, по итогам остаются кровавые, незаживающие раны, язвы международного терроризма и экстремизма. Все, о чем сказал, это наиболее вопиющие, но далеко не единственные примеры пренебрежения международным правом. В этом ряду и обещание нашей стране не расширять ни на 1 дюйм НАТО на восток. Повторю, обманули. А выражаясь народным языком, просто кинули. Да, часто можно слышать, что политика – грязное дело. Возможно. Но не настолько же. Не до такой же степени. Ведь такое шулерское поведение противоречит не только принципам международных отношений, но прежде всего общепризнанным нормам морали и нравственности. И где же здесь справедливость и правда? Одна лишь сплошная ложь и лицемерие. Кстати, сами американские политики, политологи и журналисты пишут и говорят о том, что внутри США создана в последние годы настоящая империя лжи. Трудно с этим не согласиться. Так оно и есть. Поэтому с полным на то основанием уверенно можно сказать, что весь так называемый Западный блок, сформированный США по своему образу и подобию, и весь он целиком и есть та самая империя лжи. Что касается нашей страны, то после развала СССР, при всей беспрецедентной открытости новой современной России, готовности честно работать с США и другими западными партнерами, и в условиях фактически одностороннего разоружения, нас тут же попытались дожать, добить и разрушить уже окончательно. Именно так и было в 90-е годы, в начале 2000-х годов, когда так называемый коллективный Запад самым активным образом поддерживал сепаратизм и банды наемников на юге России. И когда не забудем. Да, собственно, и до последнего времени не прекращались попытки использовать нас в своих интересах, разрушить наши традиционные ценности и навязать нам свои псевдоценности, которые разъедали бы нас, наш народ, изнутри. Те установки, которые они уже агрессивно насаждают в своих странах, и которые прямо ведут к деградации и вырождению, поскольку противоречат самой природе человека. Этому не бывать. Никогда и ни у кого этого не получалось. Не получится и сейчас. Несмотря ни на что, в декабре 2021 года мы все-таки в очередной раз предприняли попытку договориться с США и их союзниками о принципах обеспечения безопасности в Европе и о нерасширении НАТО. Все тщетно. Позиция США не меняется. Они не считают нужным договариваться с Россией по этому ключевому для нас вопросу. Преследуя свои цели, пренебрегают нашими интересами. И, конечно, в этой ситуации у нас возникает вопрос, а что же делать дальше? Чего ждать? Силы нужны всегда. Всегда, но сила может быть разного качества. В основе политики империи лжи, о которой говорил в начале своего выступления, прежде всего лежит грубая, прямолинейная сила. В таких случаях у нас говорят, силы есть, ума не надо. А мы с вами знаем, что настоящая сила в справедливости и правде.
Good evening, brothers and sisters, children of all ages. It is a joy and a privilege and a pleasure and a blessing to be with you all this evening. I am Mikayo, and it is always a great joy to be with you on Sunday night. Thank you so much for joining us out there. I see some people are watching out there, so give me a shout out in the chat box as soon as you get the chance. It's great to have you guys with me tonight, and I've got some exciting things to share today. It took me basically the whole day to get this together. Hopefully it won't take me the whole day, the whole night to share it with you. I do tend to go on a bit, but I'm going to try. I really tried today to try to get everything in order so that I can deliver it as quickly as possible. George Maxim, hello, brother. Thank you for giving me the shout out and being the first one to crack the chat box this evening. George, way to go, man. Hello to you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And guys, I got some exciting things to share tonight. I mean, it's really cool because every week God gives me new things to share. And it's pretty awesome. You know, I pray to God and then I, watch a lot of things, research a lot of things. And then my wife, God works through my wife, and she gives me great insight as well. Got to give a shout out to my wife tonight. Woohoo! Because the last couple of weeks, it's like God's like working through her. It's kind of like, I think of the people in the Bible where, God would kind of tell the wife something. She would go to them and say, hey, don't do this or do that. Think of Pilate, for example. Not that I want to be compared to Pilate, but his wife's like telling him, hey, don't mess with Jesus, like in a dream. And that's kind of how my wife's been the last couple of weeks. She keeps giving me these great insights. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, that's awesome. So she's on fire for the Lord. That's great. And I'm really encouraged that she keeps sharing that good stuff with me. Hey, thanks, George. Appreciate your hard work and search for truth. Amen, brother. That's what I'm here for. I'm just searching for the truth. I'm with you guys in the battle, in the fight of searching for the truth. And I don't claim to have all the answers, but it is sure fun when God gives you some, isn't it? Isn't it great when God just kind of reveals things to us? And that's kind of what's going on here for the last, 2 millennium, I guess, as he's just been kind of encouraging and revealing things to his saints in every generation. And we've we just happen to be the last generation, it seems, that we will be it, according to everything that's pointing to this time, that we are the final generation, which is a pretty exciting and trepidatious place to be. I mean, a lot of people wish they could have been part of the final generation, that our predecessors who've gone before us, and we're searching for that day. I mean, from going back to the apostles who thought they were going to be taken in their time. And Jesus said, soon, I'm returning soon. And they're like, all right, he's coming next week. And 2,000 years later, here we are, right? So, but of course, God wanted to save a lot more than just the apostles. He wanted to save a number no one can count, right? That's how it's described in Revelation 7, a multitude, a great multitude that no one can count. And that's what God is doing now. He's been saving souls after souls after souls, generation after generation after generation, and praise God for that. I wanted to start with that first video, and I'm going to break that down in just a second. But before I do, I just want to I want to give a shout out. Thank you for all the new subscribers out there. It's really encouraging. I really appreciate it, and it really helps build our channel. It helps our channel reach more people. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. You'd be surprised what a difference it makes. It might not mean much to you to subscribe, but it makes a huge difference for the channel to reach more people, and we want to help more people find these videos. So the more you can subscribe, the more you can like the channel, the more it helps us, and so we really appreciate that. Thanks for all the new subscribers out there, and the channel is growing by leaps and bounds. If we can get to a certain point, who knows? We may even be able to, get some sponsors or something, get some help in some other way. So if you can't help us financially, for example, which if you can, that's great. You can support us, and we really do need your support. I'd love to do this more than just Sundays. I literally took my whole Sunday today preparing for this, and I love doing it. I don't have a problem doing that. It's my sacrifice to God, because it's the Lord's day, and I want to make sure that every week I'm glorifying Him. But I'd love to do it every day if I could. And so if you want to help out with that and you want to help support us, you can do that through Zelle or PayPal by giving to love@mikhailministries.com. You can also go to our website. There's other things you can, get T-shirts and CDs, and you can also, if you want to get some private Christian life coaching, I've been helping people do that for decades now, and so I would love to help you as well. So there's lots of ways you can help support our ministry, but the easiest way is just to subscribe to the channel, tell people about it, and like the videos, and also watch the videos, because that helps too. The more hours the videos are watched, the more it helps us get found as well. So it all kind of works for the algorithms there. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. And guys, I'm really excited about tonight. I really want to tell you, man, like I said, I've been spending the whole day, literally the whole entire day, working on this, and I am very excited to talk to you tonight about this. So I opened with that video on Putin, and it was a pretty long video, so I know some of you are probably like, man, why am I watching this whole long video on Putin? But guys, I tell you, you got to watch this stuff. I mean, that was an edited version. Okay, that video is about 30 minutes long. I trimmed it down to the essence, right? Because you got to understand who this guy is, where he's coming from. You got to understand what's going on in these times, and it takes time to do that. I know my wife sometimes is like, 3-hour video? What are you talking about for 3 hours? I'm like, there's a lot of stuff. I can't even fit it all in one video, guys. The last video I did was about 3 hours, and I can't even fit it all in that video. I mean, there's just so much to talk about and so little time to do it, honestly. I wish I had more time. I wish there were more than 24 hours in a day. So in any case, I'm going to try to get to it as quickly as I can today. But I wanted to open that video because Putin talks about what he calls the empire of lies. Okay, the empire of lies. And this is an important thing because we're living in a world of lies, guys. I mean, this is something I've gone over before. It's funny because before I even saw that video, and I watch a lot of videos, but and I've seen a lot of his videos too, where he's being interviewed and where he's talking about stuff, and him sitting at the desk there and delivering his message. But before I even saw that one, when it just really popped out to me when he said empire of lies, and it's even in quotes, even in his speech, I thought, what I wanted to talk about today, I was going to call the video Lies and Propaganda. That's what I was going to call it, because I'm like, that's what's been on my spiritual edge, is this whole thing of just lies. We live in a world of lies, guys. And I wrote a song, Everyone is Lying. You might have heard it. But, I mean, it's true. Everyone is lying. Now, everyone, like even you and me, we're lying, because we live in this world of lies. And so we're so much a part of it, we don't even realize we're doing it. And we may not mean anything of it. We're just trying to fit in, or we're trying to, get along, or, did everybody decide one day, let's wear blue jeans? No, it's the culture, right? So everybody wears blue jeans, but it's not because necessarily you specifically said, I really want to wear blue jeans. It just became a cultural thing. Or wear a suit and tie, or whatever you want to do. So in a sense, it's a lie, because it's not really what you would have chosen if you were just all alone on your own and could pick something. Who knows? You might be wearing a clown suit or something, right? But the point is, we all kind of buy into these different sort of falsehoods, I guess you'd say, or cultural norms, or however you want to put it, and sometimes they can get away from us, and that's really what Putin is getting at here. Putin he's a mafia boss, to put it plainly. I mean, he's basically a mafioso. Hey, it's Putin. Hey, the Russian mafia. Hey, we lead the country. We do these things. We do what we have to do. But even mob bosses have rules that they hold by, right? And they respect each other's territory, and they say, you stay on the north, we stay on the south. We get along, okay? We do our business, you do your business. We won't mess with each other. Okay, yeah, okay, right? And that's the mob mentality, is to kind of divide and conquer in their wickedness, right? So they're still evil. I'm not saying Putin's some Christian saint, right? But he at least wants to operate in the world of reality, okay? He wants to operate in the world of norms and even morality, even if he's maybe immoral himself. I don't know. I can't speak for the guy. I'm not judging him. I'm just saying, I'm not claiming him to be a saint. I'm not claiming him to be the devil. I'm simply saying he's a human being, but he obviously got to his place in power by all kinds of means, right? He worked for the KGB. I mean, the guy was a top general in the KGB. So, you can imagine the things this guy's done and seen and been part of and dictated and so forth, right? So it doesn't mean the guy's some great guy necessarily, but he at least is acknowledging that there's a reality, okay? There's a reality, even for crooks, right? Even for crooks, there's a reality we all got to live in here, people. And instead, he's operating sort of the real world of crookdom, like he even says in his speech there, he's like, well, politics is known for having some criminal activity or some corruption or however he said it. He's like, but at least we operate in the real world. I mean, these guys are lunatics, right? And they are, guys. I mean, we've been taken over by a cabal of insane, satanic psychotics, right? So they don't operate in the real sane world, and they're not upfront about their wickedness. They're very covert and devious. Putin's like, hey, I'm going to take your country. He's kind of open about it. He's like, hey, this is what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. Now, granted, he did lie a little bit about the whole invasion thing. We could talk more about that, but that's also all fair in love and war kind of thing. But I'm just talking about in general, the guy's like, hey, you guys have gone off your rockers, basically. America, the West, they've lost their minds, okay? They're operating in this whole world of false reality, where they're getting everybody to buy into what is obviously not true. And he just wants to go back to good old corruption. Like can we keep the true, but, we'll just be corrupt behind the scenes, So he just kind of wants to be a regular politician, a regular corrupt dictator, whatever you want to call him, the Prince of ROSH, right? And he is a prince. I mean, the guy's been in power for 20 years now, over 20 years. 1991 he started. So he's been in power a long time, right? And so, he's trying to address something here in his speech, and I think the average person will probably look at him and go, that's Putin. He's a, the average person listening to the mainstream lies is just going to go, oh, that's Putin, and kind of just, forget that guy. He's horrible. He's wretched, whatever. They're going to write him off, and they're not going to really listen to what he's saying. But if you've listened to his speeches, as I have over the years and over time, you see that this guy, he lives in the real world, right? Okay, now he may be corrupt. He may be a criminal. He may not be righteous, okay? I'm not saying that. But he at least understands a spade is a spade, right? He knows black is black and white is white. He knows 2 + 2 = 4. But we're over here in the West, and we've kind of bought into the Orwellian 2 + 2 = 5, and a man is a woman, and killing your baby is just protecting your body and things like that. I mean, we've gone off the deep end, basically in morality and ethics. And not only have we done that as a culture, but we're pushing that culture on everybody. And what happens is when you start pushing lies on people, which are obvious lies, these aren't true, then it makes other things, it just becomes a snowball effect where everybody just starts lying about everything, and there really is no moral compass anymore. There is no foundation. There's no rock. Everything's just sand, and we're all just kind of floating around, right? So, in the Bible, it talks a little bit about this, and I just want to read a couple scriptures to you here. I want to actually start over here. And I shared this in another video, so I'm just going to share it quickly here. But it says, Jesus is saying, look, you belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there's no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he's a liar and the father of lies. Okay, so, Putin's talking in this speech. He's saying, look, we had an agreement with the West and with NATO, and they didn't keep their end of the agreement. And not only that, but they're just morally and ethically, they've gone crazy. And so there was a time like in the 80s where the West was kind of a noble place, or at least had that image that it gave off. And I think Russians, the USSR was struggling, and they kind of bought into that. They said, yeah, I mean, they even adopted the colors of our flag, red, white, and blue, because they had the red flag with similar to China's flag with the communist flag. So they really kind of admired in some ways the West, and they kind of imitated us in a lot of ways. And they thought, oh, well, these guys really are for the truth, and these guys really are noble, and they really do want good things, and they mean well. And so we're going to tear down the Berlin Wall, as Reagan famously told Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And we're going to tear this down, and we're going to have this happy, big, loving family of the world. And won't that be swell, right? And so they say, okay, and so they tear it down. And over time, and we're going to get into that a little bit deeper here, but over time, we've basically proven to be big, fat liars. That we are big, fat liars, guys. Now, I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm not saying I'm a liar. But I'm saying as a nation, as a West, as these leaders that have been in power and continue to keep themselves in power have shown us to be big, fat liars. Now, as a country, we might think, well, we're great. We're the West. We love people. We're open and all this good stuff. But the reality of it is much different than that. And that's what's really happening with this whole war, guys. There ain't no good guy. There ain't no bad guy. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. It's not saying that Putin is the good guy and we're the bad guy, or that we're the good guy and they're the bad guy. But that's kind of the image that's been painted. Oh, the West is the good people, and those dirty communists are just horrible, right? And there is evil in communism, no question about it. We've seen it historically, right? But there's also evil in this fake sort of liberalness that we claim to have, but secretly we're ferocious wolves, as it talks about Satan, right? It says that Satan masquerades as an angel of light, right? So we come across like, oh, we're the good guys, good cop, bad cop. We're the good guys. We're the West, Everything's wonderful in the West. Everyone wants to come to America and be American and join the American way. And come on, guys, join us. We're wonderful. And we put on this real facade. And the truth is, it's a bit mixed, because there is some wonder. I mean, there are people genuinely like that who just want to be, free and support freedom. I like to think I'm one of those people, but we're all sinful. The truth is, we're all sinful. But unfortunately, the people who keep getting into power and leading us all astray are these corrupt devils, right? So we're kind of in this bind, because we kind of want this freedom and we want this truth and justice in the American way, as Superman fought for. But instead, what we get are these wicked and wickeder, like Dumb and Dumber, that too. So that's what we wind up with. We get these angels these devils masquerading as angels of light, right? And so they come across to the communists like, oh, hey, we're great, China, and we're going to come in and help you. And of course, we gave China everything, and so now we have nothing. But they gave it all to China. And then, oh, we're going to help you, Russia, and don't worry, and all this kind of stuff. So this was the picture that was painted, and so that's what they bought into. And unfortunately, they were led astray. They were lied to again and again and again and again and again and again and again. It's how we operate in the West. We're liars. Now I say we because I'm just sort of taking on our representation as a whole nation. I'm not saying you. necessarily. I'm not saying me necessarily, but I'm saying as a collective, that unfortunately is the end all reality of it. And so part of the problem with that too is we've got a bunch of dumbed down citizens who just follow, a bunch of sheep who just follow whatever they're told. Whatever they're told, hey, take this poison, hey, stay in your house and never come out, all these kinds of things. And everybody just kind of goes along with it. Oh, okay. And nobody ever questions. Nobody says, in fact, they're made to feel bad. If you question things, well, you must be a conspiracy theorist or something. Oh, there's something wrong with you if you're questioning anything. How dare you question? Just blindly follow like a lemming and jump off the cliff. So that's kind of what we're taught. Well, why this is important, okay, and why it's significant to what I'm sharing tonight is because that is how the Antichrist is going to come to power, guys. I mean, you could argue he already has. It's just a question of, are we talking about one guy? Are we talking about a system, etc.? But that's how the Antichrist comes to power. He comes to power by sinister schemes, a man of intrigue. In Daniel chapter 8, it says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. It's kind of an interesting way to put it. Another way this is put is, if I switch over to NIV version here, it says, in the latter part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, a fierce-looking king, a master of intrigue, will arise. Interesting term, intrigue. You've probably heard that term, but we don't maybe use it that often. What does intrigue actually mean? Okay, well, it has a couple meanings. One is to arouse curiosity, interest, fascinate, but another is to make secret plans to do something illicit or detrimental to someone. See, in the case of Putin, right, like, he's pretty upfront about what he wants and what he's going to do. And that's basically what he's done. And we see him doing it, right? And, I go back to the blonde-haired commander-in-chief, Mr. Trump, was one of the first, if only in our lifetime, people who went into office and actually did the things that they said they were going to do. Not everything. Some important things he didn't do, unfortunately. But some things, many things that he actually did. But most of the time they get into office, they don't do anything that they said they're going to do. They lie to you. They lie to you and they lie to you and they lie to you. And guess what, guys? They're lying to you again. And they're still lying to you. Because you know why? Because it works. Because you fall for it. I'm not saying necessarily you, Joe Schmo, or Jane Schmo. I'm not calling anybody out in specific. I'm just saying you in general, right? The collective you is that we fall for it, guys. I'm saying me, okay? We fall for it. We go along with it. Why? Because you don't want to believe that these people are really as wicked as they really are. You don't want to believe the worst about these people. But that is why we will be deceived. That's why we are being deceived. We are being deceived, right? So when people think, oh, how could an Antichrist come to power? No one would follow him. You already are. John already said there are many Antichrists, in the world already. Jesus said that too. It's already many Antichrists in the world. It's not about this being this one guy. Look out for that one guy. It's like, dude, don't you understand? There's tons of them. And they've taken over all the top positions in government, in the media, in entertainment, and everything, so they can influence you towards evil, right? That is what they are. And that's what the Antichrist is. And that's what the West has been. See, the West comes off like, we're the West. We're awesome. Come to the land of the free. And there are a lot of great freedoms in the West. So I'm not knocking that side of it. And those of you who are true patriots and truly want freedom, hey, I'm right there with you. But what I'm trying to explain to you is there's a difference between the average person, the average Joe, the average person, the average citizen, and these people who creep their way through intrigue into power, through sinister schemes, and they work their way in. They wield their wily ways into power, and they take over. Right? And they take over what was that beautiful American dream, that beautiful Western dream. Hey, we're going to help the whole world become free and righteous and good, and we're all going to love one another. And instead, they destroy it. So we're in an interesting position right now because we've got the West who had this dream, of being this beautiful place. And they've been taken over by slime balls, right? And then you've got the kind of openly slime balls, which are like Putin and Xi Jinping, who are kind of like openly dictators. Like, yeah, we're dictators, and yeah, we put people in concentration camps and torture them, but it's just business. It's the mafia way. It's just business, man. I mean, what's the big deal, right? So they're more openly wicked. So you're kind of got this juggle. Like, would you rather an enemy or the enemy you don't know? Would you rather the upfront devil, or the one who's using sinister schemes and scheming you and acting like an angel on the surface, like, oh, I love you, come buy this car for me, oh, it's going to be wonderful, and it falls apart as soon as you drive off the lot. That's kind of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the crooked car salesman taking over our country, the satanic crooked car salesman, and then you got sort of the mafia bosses, right? And so it's this juggle for reality. It's a juggle for reality. What kind of reality are we going to live in? Are we going to live under dictatorship, which doesn't sound great, or are we going to live under a hidden dictatorship? Either way, you're not really free, right? And as we've noticed, I can't even say certain things right now that I'd like to say because I'm not really free. Oh, I thought we had free speech. Well, I guess not, because I say certain things and then it's not so free anymore, right? And we all have experienced that in different ways. So as we delve into this tonight, that's kind of where I'm coming from with this, and that's why I wanted to show that opening video of Putin, because Putin is sort of a matter-of-fact guy. The guy's kind of calm, cool, and collected, right? I think we could all agree on that. You could say he's devious. You could say lots of things about him. I'm not saying he's a great person. I'm not a Russia-phobe. I'm not an America-phobe, or I'm not a pro this or pro that. I'm not anti, I'm not pro. I'm just trying to get down to the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is lies and propaganda, which is what I was going to call tonight's video anyway. So the fact that he actually called it an empire of lies, I thought, well, there you go. He's saying it right there, because he knows it's an empire of lies. He's like a king of liars. What are you talking? It takes one to know one, right? I mean, a liar can spot another liar just like that. I spent many years acting, right? I grew up acting. I was doing commercials from when I was like 3 years old. Before I could even talk and walk, I was in modeling commercials and television commercials, and I was on Broadway by the age of 7. I've acted my whole life, and so at some point you realize, man, I don't want to act my way through life. I'd like to be a real person. What can I be like Pinocchio? What does it take to be a real boy? Can I be a real person? Because you get trained from infancy to smile for the camera all the time. You start to wonder, where's reality here? And so you start to spot other actors. So you start to spot other liars. You start to go, oh, he's lying. He's acting. He's faking it. I can tell because I've been acting my whole life. So I know what it looks like. I went to British American Drama Academy in Oxford, England. I studied under Sir Benjamin Kingsley of Gandhi fame and Iron Man and other things like that. So I'm just letting you know that because it's like I've run the gamut of the whole acting world. I know what it looks like. The fact that the Zelensky guy was an actor and he even played a president before he got elected president. I mean, that's just par for it's like, well, of course, because they're all actors, guys. They're all actors. It's very hard for you to find anybody in politics today who isn't acting, who isn't faking it. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, wow, what an act. Woo! Anyway, so let me move forward here into my next point, because I got a lot of things I want to cover here with you guys tonight. But I want to talk tonight. I want to dig in a little bit to why Putin, what's going on here with Putin. And I have another video I want to show you as well. But before I do that, I want to let me just show you that real quick, and then we'll kind of wrap up this section. Okay, so let me show you this real quick. And again, this was edited as well. It's shorter, but this is actually JFK, and he's talking about basically the same thing. Here, check this out.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Okay, so basically JFK was addressing the exact same thing, guys, and it's been going on since the dawn of mankind, and so Putin's addressing it now, right? It's this whole idea that there's a secret cabal. There's people that are openly clear about who they are and what their intentions are, and then there's a secret group. So Putin, let's talk about this guy for a second. 20 years in power, okay? 20 years. And what's his goal? What's his agenda, right? Like, to stay in power, right? It seems. Now, I'm sure in his perspective, he's got a noble agenda, but many have kind of questioned, is this guy really the president, or is he a new czar of Russia? Because 20 years in power, you're kind of past the presidency point. He's already changed the law so that he can stay in power even longer. So basically, the guy wants to stay in power for the rest of his life, right? So to call him the Prince of ROSH, as the Bible does, is pretty adequate and pretty appropriate. But it's interesting, he doesn't call him King of ROSH. He calls him the Prince of ROSH, which is almost like a nod at the fact that he's not really technically a monarch, because he's not. You know, he was supposedly elected president, and yet he continues to stay in power. But I also think it's interesting he calls him a prince because he never gets crowned. God takes him out before he can ever get crowned. And God does say in Ezekiel, he says, I'm against you, Prince of ROSH. So God is not supportive of Putin, okay? And I want to make that clear. I'm not saying I'm coming along saying God is supporting Putin. He's not. He's not. He says, I'm against you, Prince of ROSH, Meshach, and Tubal, right? So he's against him. He's not for him, right? But he's using him the same way he used Pharaoh, same way he's used Cyrus, same way he's used people throughout the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar, to get his will done, get his will accomplished, to bring about what needs to happen here, which we know is the end of days, as Putin brings his army down to surround Jerusalem, as it says in Ezekiel 38, and ultimately he and his army are destroyed. So, interesting. So what is Putin looking for? Quite simply, as he claims, I don't reign. Well, as Aretha Franklin put it, let's see, I think Aretha Franklin put it best. RESPCT, find out what it means to me. That's what he wants. He wants respect. And basically, the guy's been disrespected again and again and again and again. And so he's at the point now where he's like, all right, that's it. You know, you guys aren't respecting me. I'm the head of Russia, for crying out loud. You know, we're a superpower, we're a nuclear power, and we're not going down like this. So you're not about to just push us and brush us aside and bring in your new world order with your globalist nut job schemes and immoral and unethical and, you know, lost your minds, obviously. So we're going to try to bring things back to reality here. So that doesn't necessarily justify going into Ukraine at this moment. However, you do have to ask the question, at what point would he be justified? Does he have to wait until nuclear weapons are already on his border? Because at that point, it's a little late. But at the same time, you know, the poor Ukrainians, you know, what do they do? They're kind of stuck in the middle. You know, even the Ukraine said, hey, you didn't include us in the conversation. You're talking to NATO. It's like Ukraine is just like a bargaining chip to them. They don't consider that they're an actual country and that there's people there that need to be protected. So you got NATO that's kind of sold them out, sold them under the rug and said, well, good luck, Ukraine. They talked about them going and joining NATO, but then when now they're being attacked, NATO ain't doing squat, right? But at the same time, NATO's like, well, we can't really go to war because if we go to war, then we might go nuclear, and so forth. So Ukraine's kind of like left hanging out to dry, and Putin, we know Putin really wants to restore, Russia to its former glory. He hates that the USSR was dissolved, so he's trying to bring things back to where they once belonged. So he's trying to reclaim territory. But let's talk a little bit about this. And just real quickly, in case you didn't know, ROSH was actually the son of Benjamin, who is the son of Jacob. The 12 tribes of Israel. Well, the tribe of Benjamin. So the sons of Benjamin, one of them was ROSH. Okay, and so that is who God is against, the Prince of ROSH. And so that's the territory that goes up into the territory, but that's where ROSH actually began. Goes back to Benjamin. Now, are these Benjamites? Well, not necessarily, because we talked about the Scythians last time as well. But just something to consider, that ROSH was actually a son of Benjamin. He may have traveled up there, and maybe that's why they're calling him Prince of ROSH, because there's a connection there, because ROSH went up and populated that. I haven't dug too deep into Benjamin's son's history there, so maybe some of you could shed some light on that, or I may look into that at another point. But just wanted to give you a little background of that. But let's talk a little bit about NATO, okay? Because NATO is what Putin is going up against here, and we have to ask the question, why? What's wrong with NATO? Isn't NATO a good thing? Well, let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, so let me go back over here. All right, so NATO, in case you didn't know, is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, now NATO was started back in after World War II. It kind of came out of World War II in a sense, because they were trying to basically avoid another Nazi situation, right? Where, like, Hitler situation, where they're going to take over like that. So they agreed that any armed attack against one or more, so basically countries pulled together, initiated by America, of course, but countries pulled together under one umbrella and said, look, if anybody attacks anybody in Europe or North America, that will be considered attack against all of them. And so therefore we will all defend each other. I got your back, you got mine kind of thing, right? Well, that's great in theory until it actually comes down to it. Then you got to see if anybody ponies up, right? Kind of like Ukraine. I think they thought maybe NATO had their back. Well, do they? I don't know. I mean, they're sending them weapons and stuff. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that too. But let's look at this first. So NATO began back 1949. It assembled this initial assembly of countries and said, hey, let's band together. We're gonna be westernized. We're not going to give in to the communism. We're not going to go communist. The Cold War was starting between the West and the East, and Russia and America. And so China was kind of nowhere on the map at that point, because we hadn't given them all our money yet and all of our businesses yet. So yeah, that comes later. But right at this point, it's basically Russia and America are the big superpowers opposing each other. And so America's like, hey, we want to stay Western. We don't want given to that communist stuff. And it was real anti-communist sentiment in America. We had the whole McCarthy era where they were trying to find communists everywhere, and the Red Scare. And so there was a lot of that going on inside the United States. And then there was a lot of bunkers being built in people's homes and things like that, because they were afraid that the nuclear bombs were going to be shot at any minute. So they would have all kinds of nuclear drills and shelters, and all kinds of things were being built. Now we're actually living in that era again, only we're not really prepared for it as we were back in the 50s. So this is how it started, right, with NATO. Okay, so like, hey, let's all band together and we'll have each other's back, okay? So, well, guess what? Russia said the same thing. It said, hey, oh yeah, you're going to have a NATO? Well, we're going to start our own little NATO. We'll call it the Warsaw Pact, okay? It was even called WAPO or something like that. And yeah, they had their own little acronym too. And so basically they said, okay, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Poland, all these different all these different Eastern nations, Hungary, Romania, Albania, Bulgaria. Okay, we're all going to stick together and we're going to have the Warsaw Pact and we'll have each other's back. And they're like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. So that's why you had the wall, okay, the famous Berlin Wall. So there was East Germany versus West Germany, because for all these other countries, it was on their borders, right? But for Germany, they had to divide it down the middle of Germany. And that's why the Berlin Wall was created, because that's where the Cold War began. They put up the wall. And they said, okay, we'll stay on our side, you stay on your side, kind of thing. And we're kind of going back to that, actually. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, too. But that's basically how things initiated, right? And so there was kind of an agreement. It's like, okay, well, we'll stay on this side, you stay on that side. Well, being the intrigue, sinister schemers that the West really is. See, this is the thing, guys. I hate to break it to you, but the West kind of always had this noble, we're the good guys, and we're going to go out and spread freedom in the world. But have we? Have we really done that? When you think about it, we've gone out and bombed a lot of places. We've gone in and destroyed a lot of countries. But have we really created freedom in the world in a lot of places? I mean, I think you'd be a little hard-pressed to find the places where we've actually successfully done that. Not saying it's not a noble ambition to try to spread freedom, but I don't know that bombing and destroying countries is the way to get there. But that's kind of where we're at, right? So it was this division between the two sides. And then, of course, you know, communism is communism, and we know all the good, bad, and ugly of that, mostly bad and ugly. So they never quite achieved we're all together part, because that's heaven, guys. The only way we're really ever going to get to communism is in heaven, or in the 1,000-year reign with Jesus on the earth, because it's only with a benevolent dictator like Christ that you can actually have a real peace, a real love. You know, otherwise it's all just, you know, smoke and mirrors, because it's all just a bunch of cronies and crooks that want to get power and say, oh yeah, we're all going to get along. Only some are more equal than others, like Animal Farm, if you've ever read the book by George Orwell, which is kind of the kids' version of 1984, where the animals take over the farm and basically the pigs take over the animals and say, well, some animals are more equal than others. You know, it starts out we're all equal, and then over time. So that's basically how communism works. But it's also, surprisingly, how Westernism works too. It's just in Westernism, we pretend that's not what's happening, right? We keep it underground, we keep it beneath the surface, and we act like we're all one. But really, we freely elect our representatives. Only we know that that's not really true. So that's all being controlled as well. Well, what happened is they got to Germany, right? So these other guys, you know, were divided by their own borders. But in the case of Germany, they had to divide it down in the middle of Berlin, the city of Berlin. And so that's why you got the Berlin Wall, went right smack down the middle of the city. And so the question was, who's Germany going to join? Because they're being divided in half. The country's being divided in half, and that was after the war with Germany. So it was kind of like Germany didn't have any choice in the matter. They were just happy to not be blown to smithereens, but with a nuclear bomb like they did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And so they're like, okay, well, Russia and America are like, well, we'll divide up your land. And so they divide it up, and they say, you know, and so George Bush comes along, George Bush Sr., we're talking about now. And this guy, what a guy. Skull and Bones member, if I can say that. But he's open about it. That's open knowledge. Everybody knows that, right? So you can go research that for yourself and what that means. But basically, head of the CIA himself, kind of like similar to a Putin, right? He was the head of the CIA, and then he became president. So before him was Ronald Reagan, and those were kind of the glory years, the 80s, and it was like, oh, the Cold War came to a head. But Reagan kind of had this winning personality. He was also an actor. I keep that in mind. But he had this winning personality, and he was like, we can all get along. You know, I think we all just need to unite together. I think how much we'd come together if there were an outside force, like an alien force coming against us, as a famous speech he gave and so forth. So, you know, we're all coming off those warm, fuzzy feeling years of the Reagan years, right? At least on the surface, they were warm and fuzzy. There was a lot of other things perhaps that weren't so warm and fuzzy. But, you know, that was kind of the feeling. And so even Russia felt that. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll go along with it. And we'll become westernized. And that sounds great. And we'll all be one big happy family. Well, guys, that was never the intention. Let me say that again. That was never the intention. The West never, ever, ever truly wanted Russia to be part of the West. Ever. Hate to break that to anybody who's surprised by that, but that's what history shows. That's what documentation shows, is that they were lying on the surface. On the surface, they're like, yeah, we're all going to be one. We're all going to be together. And Russia's like, oh, that's great. And Russia's kind of like feeling kind of rough because they've been struggling and their communism kind of fell apart for them with the U.S. Soviet Union falling apart. And they're like, yeah, okay, great. We're all going to get together. We're all going to love one another. Well, sorry, that's not what they really were going to do. They were lying to you. That's the empire of lies that Putin is talking about. So they never really intended that to be the case. Russia was always going to be this sort of forever enemy. In 1984, it talks about three warring nations, Eurasia, Oceania, and I think the other one was like Britannia or something. I'm not sure. But they're always at war with each other, and they keep changing it. Like Oceania is always at war with Eurasia, and then they change it. No, Eurasia is always at war with Britannia or whatever. And they keep kind of using the war to manipulate the people. And that's kind of what America's done with Russia. They use it as kind of this constant foil, this constant dark horse that they can sort of attack and use as an excuse for everything. And they never really wanted to be one with Russia, and they never really wanted to come together. But Russia did. Russia was coming together. They even adopted our flag colors. I mean, they're on board. They're like, come on, yeah, that sounds great. We'll all be one big happy family. Well, America never really intended that. And unfortunately, it took 20 years to figure that out, as Putin has figured out all along, saying, hey, when can we join NATO? Can we join NATO? Hey, we'll join NATO. Does that sound good? Can we join NATO? Right? And so he felt like, what's up with that? He felt stabbed in the back. He felt betrayed. He felt like, hey, I thought we were all going to be together. Why aren't you being my friend? Why can't we be friends? Can't we be friends? It's like the kid on the playground. They don't want to play with you. So basically what happened was Bush Sr. said to Gorbachev at the time, he's like, hey, look, about Germany, let's say we take Germany, we'll make Germany part of NATO, and you can we'll take Germany, and in return, if we'll dissolve like. I forget exactly how. I haven't read the exact representation, so look this up for me. But basically, what went down was they said, listen, and this is supposedly in the notes, in the minute notes, because they say, oh, well, this was never written down. It's like, well, if you go back and look at it, it was in the minutes and the notes and the agreements that were made during the meetings. Okay, and basically they're saying, look, we want to work out Germany, and if you guys dissolve your Warsaw Pact and everything. We won't ever move any further east. We won't go past Germany, basically. Just give us Germany, and we won't go any further, okay? And Russia's like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds reasonable. Yeah, okay, if you agree to do that, well, then we don't need the Warsaw Pact anymore. We'll just dissolve that because you'll dissolve NATO, and we've got an agreement now. You're not going to go any further. Okay, awesome. Because they're like mob bosses. They're like, hey, okay, that sounds great. We take the east, you take the west. You do your crime over there, we do our crime over here. My bosses, it's like all's fair in love and war, but it's like honor among thieves, right? That's the principle that Russia's coming at it with. Honor among thieves. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you stay over there, we stay over here. Well, the West said that because they're angels masquerading as Satan, devil masquerading as angels of light, but they didn't really mean it. They were lying. Okay, so they continued to expand beyond where they were. And by 1952-82, they take Greece, Turkey, Germany, and Spain. Then by 1999, Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. In fact, another fun globalist, Mr. Clinton, sits down at an actual table that says NATO enlargement on it and signs bills to expand NATO even further. Isn't that great? And so people are like, whoa, wait a minute. NATO was all about the Cold War, but at the end of the 80s, the Cold War ended, guys. We tore down the wall. So what's up with NATO? Why is NATO continue to expand? We're supposed to end NATO. We're supposed to be friends now with the Russians. You keep expanding. That's kind of aggressive. It sounds like you're still fighting the Cold War. You're still trying to get nations on your side and be anti-Russia. What's up with that? Russia's like, yeah, what's up with that? We're trying to be friends with you. Why don't you just let us be friends? Can't we all just get along and be friends together? And they're like, yeah, we're friends. But secretly, they keep expanding NATO. So after a while, anybody's going to get wise to this, right? Anyone's going to look at this and go, okay, that's enough. It's kind of like the friend, your kids, right? And you got a bag of Cheetos and like, okay, well, you get 3 Cheetos and I get 3 Cheetos. And then while you're not looking, he takes one of your Cheetos. I'm like, hey man, I had 3. Now I've only got 2. He's like, no, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. And then you turn around again and then another one's gone. You're like, hey, that's it, bro. You're taking my Cheetos, No, I didn't do it. We're friends. What are you talking about? I gave you Cheetos. Hey. It's that kind of thing. It's like they're just lying to him, lying to their face, acting like they're friends when they're really not. And it's really sad, actually. It's really sad because there was a lot of great feelings at the end of the 80s, for those of us who were there, when they tore down that wall. There was a lot of tears shed. There was a lot of love exchanged. It was like, oh, yay, the Russians love their children too, and we're all friends, and we're all going to get along and give each other hugs, and let's all be friends, and we can come see family members from the other side we never saw before and everything. It was like, oh, this is awesome, and Rocky IV and all this kind of stuff. It was just, there was a lot of that going on in the 80s, the land of confusion, as Phil Collins sang the song. So, there was a lot going on in the 80s with this whole Cold War, and then when it finally broke at the end of the 80s, you're like, yes, awesome. Well, unfortunately, that was all a lie, at least from the West side. It wasn't a lie from Russia's side. And that's what's sad about it, because Russia's like, hey, it's like, you hurt our feelings, man. Russia was like, hey, I thought we were going to be friends, thought we were going to work together, which would have been the smart thing to do. And any normal thinking person would be like, yeah, let's work together with Russia. I mean, they're a superpower, we're a superpower. I mean, that's what Mr. Blondehair did when he got in office. He's like, yeah, well, we should be friends with them. Why are we going to be enemies with them? That's not very smart. Let's work together. Let's be friends. Let's all get along. Right? And that's what we all want, world peace, right? We all want to get along, be one. So it would have been smart to work together and get along. And that way, too, it would help keep China in check, because now China's risen up to be the superpower. And so, it's like, instead, we kind of brush them to the side, where they're like, hey, we left communism. We came over to your side. We want to be westernized, too. And they're like, no, we don't like you. Get out of here. And so they kept expanding NATO, Montenegro, North Macedonia. And now, finally, they got their eyes on Ukraine. Okay, that's what leads us to Ukraine. You got Ukraine, Georgia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and then also they're looking at now Finland, Sweden, and Serbia. So Russia's like, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, for 20 years now, you guys have been creeping in and taking and lying. And eventually, it's just like, forget it. Enough lies. Enough with the empire of lies. Okay, that's it. You ain't doing it. You ain't going to take Ukraine. You ain't coming in. You ain't going to do this. You've taken all these other nations. No way, Jose. You ain't doing it. Right? And so they're finally reacting to that. Now, we can argue whether or not that they've reacted in the best way or at the right timing, etc. But, God also has a plan in all this, and that's what we got to keep a perspective on. There's a time frame. God has a ticking time for all this, as well as when things have to go down and when things have to happen. So, little does the Prince of ROSH know that he's actually on God's time clock with all this, as much as God is against him as well. So that's what's going on, guys. So that's why we're in this situation right now. Is Putin in the right and the West in the wrong? I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that this is what's led to this point, okay? Now, how he's reacted and how he's responded, well, we could argue whether it's the best approach or whether maybe he should have waited. Maybe, why not sit down and try to work things out? But it sounds like he did meet with Ukrainian leader early on, and they were still like, no, we're going to join NATO. We're still going against you. And so he's like, what am I supposed to do here? Now, granted, at the same time, does he not want to take back the Ukraine for Russia? Well, sure. I mean, he took Crimea. Does he not? And there's the eastern part of Ukraine that wants to be Russian. So does he not want to go in there and take that land and take those people and build back his empire? Well, yes, you could certainly argue that as well, right? So there's a lot. It's multi-layered, guys. You got to remember it's multi-layered. But don't listen to the mainstream blah on either side. Just dig into the truth, the history of really what happened and what is happening right in front of us, okay? So Putin's last friendly warning, this was in 2007, according to this, where I got this from. It says, NATO has put its frontline forces on our borders, and they had already done it with Latvia, Estonia, because they're actually on the border of Russia as well. But they're smaller nations, not quite as intimidating as Ukraine. Ukraine's a bigger chunk. But NATO has put its frontline forces on our borders. This expansion represents a serious provocation that reduces the level of mutual trust, and we have the right to ask, against whom is this expansion intended? And what happened to the assurances our Western partners made after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, right? And that's why I just explained to you. So after the Warsaw Pact dissolved, this was the plan, was that, hey, we're all going to be one big happy family, right? Okay. We don't have to do this game anymore of NATO and the Warsaw Pact because we're one. We took down the wall. What's going on here? So why you guys keep moving in on me? So after a while, you start to get wise. The mob boss goes, hey, you're coming into my territory. Hey, what's up with that, man? I'm starting to think maybe you don't like me so much. I'm starting to think that like maybe you got some plans to take me out of the picture. Like, what's up with that, right? So that's what Russia's doing. That's how they're responding. And they're saying, hey, whoa, what's going on? Why are you keep moving in on me? And yet, every time I ask you to join NATO, you say no. See, that doesn't really add up, right? That doesn't jive. Because why are you taking all these little nations, right? Kind of, I don't want to put down these nations, but inconsequential in terms of a world war compared to a Russia in terms of like, I'm going to say consequence, I'm talking like nuclear bombs and things like that. You're taking all these little nations, you're gobbling them up. But meanwhile, we're over here as Russia saying, hey, we want to join NATO. Why can't we join NATO? Can you let us join NATO? And he keeps asking president after president. And they're like, well, they give him the hand, right? And they say, no, you can't join NATO. And he's like, well, what's up with that? Why are you taking all these guys that are right on our border, yet you're not taking us? That makes us think like that maybe you don't like us so much and that maybe like you're going to take these guys and come and bomb us, use them to get to us. Like you don't want to work with us and help allow us to be Russia. You want to take us out and make us into some westernized, nonsensical nut job of a country, right? See, back in the 80s, we seemed to have it together as America. We seemed to have morals. We seemed to have conviction. We seemed to have some ethics. We seemed to be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe this communism thing wasn't so great, Gorbachev and USSR. And they're like, maybe we could imitate the Western and get in the Western culture. But the West was always like, nah, we don't want to work with them because they're too independent. We can't control them. See, we want to control. The cabal wants to control everything. And we know we can dumb down these Americans and dumb down the rest of these West people, get them to watch streaming shows all day and listen to nonsense while we just take away their freedoms. We knew we could do it with them. But this guy's a little too smart. He's a little too sharp for that. And we can't really work with them, but they're also too strong. So we can't just go and invade them like we did in Iraq or somewhere else. So we got to kind of strategize this a little bit better so we can take over Russia and do what we want with it, right? So they don't want to have a free Russia in the picture, right? Or a China for that matter. But see, Russia's the easier one to go after first. So they're not going after China right now. China comes next, right? So that's why Putin's getting wise, Xi Jinping's getting wise, and they're going, oh, what's going on here? What are they really trying to do? They're trying to take us out. They want this one world order, this globalism, and we're not part of that. It's a big club, and you ain't in it, right? That's what they're saying to Putin and Xi Jinping. But they're playing games with us, just the same way Hitler did. Hitler did the same thing when he said to some of the other nations, like, oh, no, I'm not going to invade you, and then he invades them, right? Oh, no, you're on my side, and then he takes them out, It's the same strategy they've been using again and again. And they go in and they destroy all these countries. They use the CIA and other groups to go in and destroy these nations. And they take them out. They send in groups that subvert the government and get them to turn against themselves. It's the same thing they've done in America here, and they do it everywhere else. So he's like, whoa, okay. So, but he's not the only one who said it. A lot of people have said this. This is guy, he's an American diplomat and historian. I think it's a tragic mistake. There was no reason for this whatsoever. No one was threatening anybody else. Talking about the expansion of NATO into Ukraine. He's like, why are we even doing this? We shouldn't be doing this anymore. This guy, William Burns, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, says Ukrainian entry into NATO is the brightest of all red lines for the Russian elite. From knuckle draggers in the dark recesses of the Kremlin to Putin's sharpest liberal critics, I have yet to find anyone who views Ukraine in NATO as anything other than a direct challenge to Russian interests. Because you guys remember, Russia was part of, I talked about this in the Scythians. Russia was part of, Ukraine was part of, they were one people at one time, right? So it's kind of like you're turning against your own family. Like this is like your own family. And ironically, now they are fighting against each other. So again, we can argue who's to blame there. But former Secretary of State says trying to bring Georgia and Ukraine into NATO was truly overreaching. This move was a case of recklessly ignoring that the Russians considered their own vital national interests. And lastly, so another former Secretary of State in the U.S., many Russians see NATO as a vestige of the Cold War. They point out that they have disbanded the Warsaw Pact and ask why the West should not do the same, right? So that's what's going on, guys, with this whole NATO and Warsaw thing and why we're in this war. I wanted to give you a little bit of that history because most people don't know it, and the lamestream, lying mafia media will never tell you anything like that. So just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this, about what's going on here with NATO and with the West. And let's go back over here. I want to talk a little bit about NATO being involved in this war. Okay, so we got this Warsaw Pact. Okay, so here was the here was where the line was drawn, basically, back in that day. So Poland was part of it. I mean, I didn't even realize Poland was part of the USSR before. I thought Poland was just always its own nation, but it was actually part of the USSR. It was part of the Soviet Republic, as was Romania, Czechoslovakia, which is now the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. And you've got, what else? The Eastern Germany, and then you got Hungary and Bulgaria. Okay, so that's where the line was originally drawn. And with this Warsaw Pact, Ukraine actually, interestingly, was not part of the original pact, though they were present. And here you can see, it says Ukraine. It says the prime ministers of the Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia were also dutifully present. Right? It says that right here. So they were present as well at the meeting, but they were not the original ones part of it. The original countries that were part of it were Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. So that was the Warsaw Pact. Okay, great. Let's keep moving. So now they're talking about sending in 20,000 foreign volunteers into the Ukraine to fight. Okay. So meanwhile, NATO's over here saying, well, NATO can't get involved. Well, who do you think these volunteers are, guys? Where do you think you get 20,000 random volunteers to just drop their job and I'm going to go die in a war? Guys, get real. This is the devil masquerading as an angel of light. This is NATO. I mean, who do you think these volunteers are? Oh, they're just foreign volunteers. They're just average working people who just came out of nowhere. It's like, dude, this is the way for NATO to get around it, is by calling them volunteers. Oh, yeah, it's just these they're foreign volunteers. Well, of course they are. They're called soldiers. They're called the military. Those are foreign volunteers, although the military gets paid. But they are foreign volunteers. They're volunteering to go and fight in a war and die. So, yes, guys, it's NATO. NATO's going in. I would think. Okay, let me just add the caveat. I would think that that's really what we're talking about here. Okay, I can't prove it, but come on, can we get real here? This is the Empire of Lies we're talking about. And then you got Mr. B over here saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to send $32.5 billion to the Ukraine." Really? Oh, really? Huh? Funny. This guy in the Ukraine always seem to have a history, don't they? And $1 billion. This guy, the Ukraine, and billions of dollars always seem to have a history together. But who's really getting those billions of dollars? You know, you got to wonder when you just kind of give billions of dollars away, where do those $1 billion really wind up? Whose pockets are they really going in? Are they really going to help the military there? Are they really going to help the people there? Or are they going somewhere else? You kind of have to ask the question. Okay, hegemony. Okay, so this is what China has accused the West of. Okay, and this is where China gets into the mix here. Hegemony. Okay, very important. Hey, John, thanks for joining the conversation. I'm going to come back and read your guys' comments here in a little bit. But hegemony. Okay, so hegemony is what China has accused the West of. Okay, and let me just come over here. It says, can China shield Russia from Ukraine-linked sanctions? Okay. Let's see. Okay. China says, it has largely blamed the U.S. for causing the war for the purpose of maintaining its declining hegemony. Okay, so this is a word that China has been using lately. And again, hegemony is a leadership or dominance, especially by one country or social group over others. Again, i.e. the New World Order, right? So China is basically saying, listen, we don't, America had the influence back when it had the moral high ground. We don't have the moral high ground anymore. No one's looking to America for moral leadership because we're morally corrupt. We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We don't honor God anymore, the one nation under God, as a nation, as a leadership. And I'm saying there's individuals that do, we do obviously, but the majority have turned their back on God. And so China and Russia are waking up to that and saying, hey, we're not following these bozos because they've lost their minds. So he's like, we're not going to give into their hegemony anymore. And so that's what China says here as well. He says China has long expressed its displeasure in what it calls the U.S.'s financial hegemony and its corresponding ability to slap sanctions on foreign countries. So we're building up this hatred with China and Russia, and so these battle lines are being drawn. And basically, Russia's starting to go, okay, well, if I can team up with China, okay, which is the other biggest superpower, right, which basically he's done now, and China can cut us off and start saying, they still want our money, so China doesn't kind of want to make that move yet, but we're kind of running out of money, and we're going down like a lead rock. So they're like, maybe it's time to draw those lines again. Maybe it's time to draw those eastern lines again. And so if I can get Ukraine, he's looking here at the map, and if I can get Turkey, because now he's got Libya on board, if I can get that line to go back again, and we can just make the East, and we'll keep sanity over here. Yeah, we're crooked, we're corrupt, but we're at least sane. And they'll let those crazy nut jobs in the West kill themselves. Then maybe that's the way to do it. And so it's kind of a strategy that he's looking at here of drawing this line back again. Okay, so let me share this with you in Revelation. It's kind of interesting. Revelation 9 that kind of relates to this. It says, he says the number of mounted. Oh, here, let me start back here in Revelation 9. It's 14. It says, it said to the sixth angel. Let me start at 13. The sixth angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the four horns of the golden altar that is before God. I said to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound to the great river Euphrates. And the four angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. The number of the troops mounted was twice 10,000 times 10,000, which is basically 1,000,000. Okay? If you look at this, if you open this up, it says the number of the armies was, not 1,000,000, 200 million. That's 200 million, okay? Myrias was 200 million, okay? So you think, who's got 200 million soldiers to fight coming from the east over the Euphrates? Okay? Well, we know it's not Russia, but if you look at China, China has 1.6 billion people. So 200 million combined with Russia and all the others in the Middle East, you could get to 200 million. It is possible. And it says, the horses and riders I saw in my vision looked like this. Their breastplates were fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. The heads of the horses resembled the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. Okay, so I thought this was interesting too. It's describing these, they're saying they're horses, but again, it's kind of a callback to the Scythians. They were the horse warriors, right? But it's describing these weapons as being fiery, smoky, and sulfurous. And I'm thinking, well, what kind of weapons might this be? When I looked up sulfur weapons, one of the first things that comes up is mustard gas. So it could be chemical weapons, right? But sulfur is also used in tank shells. Tank shells were made with sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal. And so sulfur is part of the weaponry of tanks. And so when it's describing this image, and you think of the term beast that's used in Revelation, I mean, if you were seeing a vision of this, right, you're thinking, what is that thing? it looks like a beast, right? It looks like some sort of unknown creature. Like, is this a weapon? What is this thing, right? And if you're looking at some of these weapons, you might not know how to describe it because you can see it moving around like a tank. It's moving. You don't know, is this really, and it's in a vision too, so maybe it's not that clear what you're seeing, but you're seeing these things that may look like the tail of a scorpion, or you know, how's it describe it there? It says it resembled the heads of lions, out of their mouths came fire and smoke and sulfur. Right? The heads of the horses resemble the heads of lions, you know, and they can kind of look like teeth, you know, sometimes these rocket launchers, and came smoke and sulfur. And smoke and sulfur came out of their mouths. The power of the horses was in their mouths and their tails. So here you got the mouth and the tail. It's coming out of the front end. It's coming out of the back end as well. So kind of interesting. Something else I thought was interesting in this passage is it says that their breastplates were fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. And so it made me think, this is something passage my wife had shared with me. I was thinking about it. I'm like, what country has a flag that's red, blue, and yellow as sulfur? And when I looked it up, it was like Romania. I'm like, okay, I don't think Romania is going to be too threatening. But I said, well, what if two forces came together and they united, right, for this battle, for this kind of new, like if Putin is forming this new East, right, and he's saying, listen, I'm going to go and I'm going to take Ukraine, and I'm going to go down there, I'm going to take Israel out. He's probably already got that planned out. He's already looking at Finland, right? I've heard talk about that because they're talking about joining NATO as well. And so he's like, if I can get this, go up there in the East, and we kind of start this whole new kind of Eastern Union, you know, I don't know what they would call it, but it needs a flag, right? And they say, well, if I join together with Russia, maybe Russia and China would combine their flag colors together, in which case you would have the breastplate, the red breastplate, as described, a fiery breastplate with fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. So you've got the fiery red, you've got the dark blue, and you got the yellow of the Chinese flag. This may be a new flag that's being described of this union, of these guys coming together and combining their colors, because Russia probably wants to reject red, white, and blue now, because that associated with the United States of America. So they're going to reject those colors and adopt this new color, kind of a combined flag. Well, we'll take two of your colors, you take two of our colors, and we've got the red, blue, and yellow together as this new flag, this new representation of this Eastern force that's going to come against Israel. So something interesting to think about there. Okay. Now, you know, I did a video a while back, and it's very interesting what has come out, because every time I do these videos, I just do them as God shares them with me and shares the information that he gives with me. And I don't think much about it at the time. I just kind of share it, you know, kind of like the fig tree generation, February 11th. And then later I see a video that goes, oh, wow, somebody else found another connection to February 11th that I didn't even know about the Star of Bethlehem that happened in 2015. And that was exactly 7-year warning to February 11th, which I didn't even share about in that video because I didn't know about it at that time. I was just sharing based on the days of Noah Enoch calendar, right? Well, another video I did here that was just sort of something God put on my heart, and there wasn't, you know, at the time, a lot of people were looking at January 19th time period as a time when could be in Arpazo, something may happen. I think it was Feast of Trees at that time. People were looking at that, and I did this video, as you see here on the right. It's called 4 Months More. Open your eyes, and it's talking about January 19th time frame. Okay. And it was 4 months, exactly 4 months after Tabernacles, that date came around. So go check out that video because it relates to what I'm sharing right now. Well, wouldn't you know it, and again, I didn't know this obviously, but what's come out now is that Putin actually had planned to invade Ukraine on January 18th. Isn't that interesting? So it's come out now that the war plan that he didn't do until February, it wasn't until February 24th officially that he invades, until a month later, but that the plan was cleared it was clear that supposedly, it says Russia's secret war documents have revealed that the plans for Moscow's war with Ukraine was approved on January 18th, and anticipated the capture must be executed within 15 days from February 20th to March 6th. And I think they were trying to work around the whole Olympic schedule because they were, they're friends with Russia, so they didn't want to mess with Russia's revenues there. So then we'll wait and start after the end of the Olympics. Russia's secret war documents have revealed that the plans for Moscow's war with Ukraine were approved by January 18th, anticipated the capture there be executed within 15 days. So isn't that interesting that ties in with the 4 months more video that I had done back for January 18th, 19th, that time frame. It's like that was the 4 months more, and that was the same time that Putin decides to go to war at that same moment. And God begins the harvest because they are the Scythians. They bear the Scythe, as we talked about in the last video, and the Scythe is used for the harvest. And so that's the moment that they plan out this war, this battle to go in. I thought that was really very interesting. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So let's shift a little bit here and talk a little bit about Russia and Israel, okay? So I think I just want to check that I shared everything I wanted to share with you so far. And a lot of information in tonight's video. It's kind of like my one chance a week to kind of unload it all to you guys. So I'm just unloading it all, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. But I want to talk about Israel and Russia, okay? So Russia, and let me just take a break. Let me just take a moment and welcome some of you guys out there. I'm going to read some of your comments, and then we'll continue here. So George, what's happening, man? Thanks, man. Thanks for the encouragement. Don't trust anyone except Jesus. All those in high places are not good people. Don't have our interest in mind. I think it's funny how America tries to install so-called democracy in other countries when we ourselves are not a democracy. We're a republic. Amen. So true. John, Israel's trying to do peace talks with Russia. Very interesting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Israel's trying to be the peace man. They're trying to be the peacemaker, because they realize they're going to get involved somehow, and they'd rather be involved on a positive end rather than on a negative end. So it's kind of a smart play, it's a little bit of a risky play, but I guess any play would be, because they need Ukraine and they need Russia. They need the Ukraine for their food. 50% of their grain and everything comes from Ukraine, but they also need Russia because Russia is helping them in Syria so that they can continue to bomb Syria, so or at least defend themselves against Syria, however you want to look at that. So there's a relationship going on there. So they're like, hey, why don't we just get involved as the middleman, and that way we're friends with everybody, and that solves a big problem. I mean, it's kind of a smart move, very shrewd move, because it's like, hey, we need both of them, so let's be the friends of both. We'll be the peacemaker. So pretty smart. Let's see. Russia will move. George says Russia will move to attack Israel. When is the question? But they will eventually. They want the large deposits of oil and gas in the Golan Heights. Yes, I'm just about to get into that. So awesome. So I'm glad I'm reading your comments because it totally ties into what I'm just about to jump into. Brett says it's great that we watch. We are, after all, told to do so. Time is so close now that watching has, for me, taken a back seat. All the ducks are aligned and is about to hit the fan. No doubt anymore. Yeah, exactly. I've kind of stopped being so much of a date guy. I mean, if dates come up, I'll share them. I'm going to share a little bit tonight, actually, about a date. But I'm not so date focused because it kind of misses the point a little bit. And I think that's why dates have come and go, because God wants us to look a little deeper than dates, And so I'm looking more at events and looking more at scripture and looking more at, say, okay, what things need to take place according to Christ, according to Jesus, because Jesus said in Luke 21, when you see this, when you see this, when you see this, when you see that, then you'll know the end is near. So when people say, well, it can happen any time, well, sure, God can do it any time because he's God. He can do whatever he wants. But he also set things up, and he also told us, hey, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, then I'm going to come back, right? So we have to look for those things too. And so when we see things happening like in Revelation 6 or in Luke 21 or the Ezekiel 38 and 39, then we can start to be like, oh, hey, wow, the scriptures are coming to life, guys. This is amazing. The scriptures are actually coming to life. We're seeing it happen right before us. Brett, now may well begin the period where we need to comfort one another with these words. Amen. And look toward heaven and away from earth. I've started the process of uncoupling from the world and watching it less. Amen. Me too. George says, Brett, continue to spread the gospel. It's more important now than ever. Amen. Being we are so close to the end. Amen. Brett, it's very hard now. People are under a great deception. All my family basically think I'm an idiot. Hey, me too, bro. Me too. thank God, at least those closest to me still love me. But yeah, a lot of my family thinks the same thing because they're part of the lie, unfortunately. Not that saying your family's liars or that my family's liars, but they're deceived. It's what God says. He'll send a great delusion so that they'll believe the lie, and that's basically what's happening. They're deluded and they're believing the lie, and they're not digging into the truth. And they think, you bring something up, and a family member makes a comment like, "Whoa, all those people that wear tinfoil hats think that," and stuff like that. It's like, bro, come on, man. Stop parroting all the anti-conspiracy theorist lies, and lines. Just take a look at the facts, right? Do people conspire to do evil? Yes, it's proven, right? People rob banks. It's a bank robbery is a conspiracy. People conspire together and they commit crimes. It happens. So you got to look deeper. And unfortunately, a lot of our family members and friends have just kind of bought into the lie. I mean, this goes all the way back to like 2014, talking about G marriage, GAY marriage, and things like, the whole, it's so hard to say anything. The whole 2016 election, I'll just say, and just so many things, guys, where this goes back to when we were all online and we were all voicing our opinions, and all of our friends kind of said, "You're crazy, you're nuts, what are you talking about?" And I said, "Man, you cross this line, it's going to open up a can of worms." And they're like, "Oh yeah," and it has, right? And all the crazy, all the rioting and everything else. I mean, it's so hard to say anything anymore. The fact that I can't say anything, just that says it all right there. Let's see. People are basically, my family basically, and have spoken to me for a year or two. I still preach to everyone, but now most won't listen. Yeah, I mean, we have to find other ways. We got to find other ways to win them over. That's why Jesus used parables. He used stories. He was living in the same type of time when if he said the wrong thing, they would arrest him and kill him. So which eventually happened. So he had to kind of be very careful and cautious about the way he spoke when he spoke, so that so he's telling stories about farmers and wedding banquets and things that seem innocuous. You're like, oh well, he's just talking about a wedding banquet, what's the big deal about that, right? So he would tell these stories that anybody, the average listener, would be like, oh, I don't see him, he's not causing any trouble. But those who look deeper would understand, oh, I see what he's saying. I see what he's getting at, right? So we got to be a little shrewder. We got to be shrewd as snakes. And unfortunately, where our family members, you think you can just be blunt and honest and tell them the truth, but unfortunately, they are deceived. They're greatly deceived, and they don't want to be undeceived. It's like what they say in the Matrix. A lot of these people don't want to be unplugged, and that's kind of what we're dealing with. Is a lot of people just don't want to be. They don't want their world messed with. Come on, I got my world where I like it, and don't mess with it. But unfortunately, their world's about to get messed with in a big, big way. All right, well, thanks for the comments. Keep the comments coming, guys. Just want to do a comment check in there. All right, let's continue on here. So Russia calls Israel the problem in the Middle East. So the fact that Russia is saying that Israel is the problem, that's already a problem for Israel, right? If they're viewing Israel that way. Now, that's a little bit older. That's from 2020, but here's a more recent one. Russia takes issue with Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And I believe it was it Brett that brought this up? Or George? George brought this up. Thanks, George. Exactly. Russia is taking issue with Israel's sovereignty with the Golan Heights. Guys, this could be the tipping point that brings them down, that puts that hook in the mouth of the Prince of ROSH and drags him on down to Israel. Because it's not just this, it's the fact that, look, he's like, listen, I want to tie up this Eastern thing, but Israel's like a thorn in my side. Because if I go down the line east, who's sticking out there like a sore thumb? Because he's got Ukraine. Okay, once I get Ukraine taken care of, I got Turkey. Yeah, I can handle them. We're good. Syria, yeah, that's good. Israel, because he's looking everywhere else. Oh, Egypt, well, okay. Yeah, I can deal with Africa. I can deal with all them. Israel. Ugh. And now that Putin's going against the West and going against NATO, well, Israel's sticking out like a sore thumb because they're all they're tied in with that. Not only that, but Israel has other things that Putin wants, right? So he's using this Golan Heights thing as he did with the Ukrainian invasion. It was the same thing. He's like, I'm going to go into Ukraine, but I'm going to use it as, well, I'm liberating the people. These Eastern Ukrainians, they want to be Russian. So he's going in as a liberator, right? Rather than as a terminator, as a destroyer. He's like, no, I'm just trying to help the poor Ukrainians out, So he's going into Ukraine to try to supposedly liberate the people, as Mr. Blondehair said. What a smooth move that was, right? Because it was a very shrewd move for him to use that as a way to get into the country and then just keep going. So same thing here. There's reasons he wants to take out Israel, right? That go beyond the Golan Heights. But the Golan Heights is a good cover. It's a good front story. Because you can say, well, I'm just defending Syria. It's not nothing about us. We're just defending Syria. So they're talking about the Golan Heights, okay? Well, what are the Golan Heights? Okay, let's take a look at this. Because a lot of people don't know what the Golan Heights is. I didn't really know until I looked into it. So tell me more about this Golan Heights. Okay, well, the Golan Heights is an area between Israel and Syria. It's kind of a disputed territory, right? Is it Syrian? Is it Israeli? They're disputing this territory, kind of like the Ukraine or kind of like your Crimea, right? They're having their own dispute about territory of who owns this territory. Well, let's take a look in the Bible, shall we? So in the Bible, the Golan, isn't it cool that all this stuff is in the Bible? I just have to say, isn't that amazing in and of itself that all this stuff is in the Bible? It's pretty cool. Well, this goes all the way back to the time of Moses, guys. The Golan Heights go all the way back to the time of Moses. Think about that. So it says, then Moses set aside, in 41 here, it says that Moses set aside 3 cities east of the Jordan to which anyone who had killed a person could flee. If they had unintentionally killed a neighbor without malice aforethought, they could flee into one of these cities and save their life. The cities were these: Bezer in the wilderness plateau for the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Manassites. Interesting. So this was a place of refuge for the Israelites, and this was part of the territory of Manasseh. Now, Manasseh is one of the 2 sons of Joseph, of the famous Technicolor Dreamcoat. Joseph's kids were Ephraim and Manasseh, and Manasseh got a nice big chunk of land, as I'll show you in a second here. But it says in 1 Chronicles, it says, under the sons of Gershom were given out of the family of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Golan in Bashan with her suburbs, and Ashtaroth with her suburbs. So this belonged to the tribe of Manasseh. So Israel's saying, look, this belongs to our land from the time of Moses. We've had the Golan Heights, right? That belongs to the tribe of Manasseh, right? So that's where they're coming from with their battle. And of course, Syria is making their claims for whatever they're making their reason. But here's a little map to give you an idea. As you can see, Manasseh is a huge territory there. Back it out a little bit, as you can see a little bit more. Maybe I'll move it in a little bit. Okay, so huge territory there for Manasseh, right? They had a nice big chunk on both sides of the Jordan River. And really, if you start getting up here, you're kind of getting up into where Asher and Naphtali, you're kind of getting up into Lebanon territory. I was thinking, I'm wondering if they overlap. I think Lebanon maybe starts here where that blue line is, that river. So, big territory for Manasseh, and the Golan Heights were part of that. Now, let's take a look at the map. So I want to show you something. Now, you may notice there, you might see here, I don't know if I can highlight this. Oh, I can't really highlight. Oh, there. I don't know if you can see I highlight that. Right underneath the red and the purple area, you'll see a place called Megiddo. Okay, very interesting. Place called Megiddo. Now, some of you may be familiar with Megiddo. I'll talk a little bit about that here. But let's take a look here. The Golan Heights at a map. Okay, so the Golan Heights are up here. This is kind of this disputed territory that was given to Manasseh, the tribe of Manasseh. So the Israelites said, hey, that's Israelite territory, right? And just an hour and a half way, about an hour and 40 minutes drive, is Megiddo down here. You say, well, who cares about Megiddo? What's big about Megiddo? Let's take a look at this. Find this very interesting. Okay, so Megiddo is kind of in a strategic spot because it's like this open area, a big plain area, and it's in between. It's kind of an in-between between Israel and the Golan Heights. Okay, so if you look here at Megiddo in the Bible, again, this goes back to the time of Joshua. Joshua was the one who followed Moses, who was the successor of Moses. Okay, was Joshua. He led the people out of the desert and ultimately into the promised land. Okay, now, and Megiddo's talked about several times there, but let's take a look at this word Megiddo. Okay, so I want you to see this. So Megiddo if you look in the original Hebrew, is actually Megadon or Megidon. Is that starting to sound a little bit like something? Megiddo or Megadon. Megadon. Okay, so this is the original Hebrew. Megiddo, Megadon, place of crowds, ancient city of Canaan assigned to Manasseh and located on the southern rim of the plain of Esdraelon, 6 miles from Mount Carmel and 11 miles from Nazareth. Megadon. Megiddo from rendezvous, Megiddon, or Megiddo, a place in Palestine. Megiddo, Megadon. Okay. Pay attention to that word, because that's the Hebrew, right? But now we go to the New Testament and we go to the book of Revelation. And we see this term that many people have heard, even if they don't know where it's from, Armageddon. Armageddon, okay? Now, R is kind of a preposition. It's like arpazo, or there's other words like that where they put R as kind of a predecessor. So you got Megadon. Okay, sound kind of familiar? What we just read. Take a look at this. Okay, so this is now in the Greek. It says, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth, and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in Hebrew tongue Armageddon." Armageddon. Okay, and you go down here to Armageddon, and it says Harmageddon. Again, this word har, it's like har is a separate word, so it's really Mageddon or Megiddon or Megiddo, right? And look at this. It says Armageddon, the hill or city of Megiddo. Dun, 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 dun. The scene of a struggle of good and evil suggested by that battle plain of Esdraelon, which was famous for 2 great victories of Barak over the Canaanites and Gideon of the Midianites, for 2 great disasters. Hence in Revelation, a place of great slaughter, the scene of terrible retribution upon the wicked. Translates as the name Har. See here, Harmageddon, like the place of Megiddo. Of Megiddo, you could say, the hill. As Ar is the city of Megiddo. Okay, so it's city of Megiddo. So that's what Ar is. I knew it was another word. So Har is the city of Megiddo. Har Megiddo. Har Megiddo. Harmageddon. Okay? That's where it comes from, guys. So when they're talking about Megiddo here, or they're talking about the Golan Heights, that's only an hour and 40 minutes from Megiddo, i.e. Armageddon, the city of Megiddo. Har Megiddo. Okay? So if you're going to fight over this territory, the Golan, right, and Israel's coming up from the south, what would be a great place to meet? Right here in the middle, in Megiddo, in Harmageddon. Check that out. Is that not amazing? So this Golan Heights thing may be the tipping point that brings about this final battle of Armageddon that has been talked about for 2,000 years. And it's the Golan Heights that could be prompting this, because they're already fighting over this territory and they're pushing them back. And so they're pushing into Golan Heights and they're pushing them back to Golan Heights from the Golan Heights. So Megiddo may be the place where this battle is ultimately fought and has been fought in the past. Pretty interesting. Pretty cool. Okay. So that's sort of the front reason, right? Is the fact of the Golan Heights. That's sort of the front reason that Russia's like, hey, Israel, you got to cut that out, man. You can't be going to the Golan Heights. That's serious territory, and Israel's like, well, no, it's not. We've had it since biblical times, man. Go back to Moses. And Russia's like, well, come on now, you can't do that. But really, why does Russia want to take out Israel? It always comes back to the almighty dollar, right? That's really what they're interested in. Can Israel become Europe's gas supplier? This is amazing, because we're all bringing this about, right? It's like one brings the other. So now the West has put these sanctions on Russia so that they can't do business, and would probably do the same for China ultimately. But China's a tough one because China has all our stuff, So like, well, we don't want to mess with China because China. But Russia has some of our stuff too, and one of the things they have is oil, right? And so by putting this embargo or these sanctions, they're saying, listen, you can't sell your oil here anymore. And then they're kind of kicking themselves in the foot, because they're like, but we need their oil. Well, what do we just do? What do we do with ourselves? So they're kind of they're kicking themselves in the shins, because they're like, we can't let you do business, but we kind of need you to do business because we need your stuff, So that's what's going on, guys. It's the oil. Remember in Revelation 6, where it says, don't damage the oil or the wine? Well, the word there, oil, is olive oil. It's describing, but olive oil was used both as a food and as a fuel, right? Something that they would use to light their lamps. So you can argue that it could also be applied to the oil that we use to light our lamps, so to speak, as well. And this oil is a big deal. So we got the grain covered and the barley, the wheat and the barley. We talked about that in previous videos. And now we got the oil we're looking at here as well, which is really interesting. And so ROSH is saying, look, they're going to take all of our business. You know, Israel's a competitor with us with this oil, and they're also an ally to the West. So, you know, if we're smart, let's swing down and take out Israel. We'll say it's because of the Golan Heights. You know, same thing. You know, he'll use some shrewd mafioso kind of way to do it. You know, the empire of lies. Oh, we're dealing with the empire of lies. So I'm going to do my own lies, you know. So he'll use the front of the Golan Heights, right? But really what he wants is that oil. He wants that power because he doesn't want Israel to take all his business. He needs to make that money. And then if he can take Israel, he'll have that oil too. He'll have it all. And they'll have the East, and they'll share it with the, you know, he'll get the Muslims on board, and they'll be like, all the Muslim nations around, they're like, yeah, let's take out Israel. Woo, we'll take their oil. And it'll just be one big happy family trying to take Israel out. And they won't succeed, of course, but that's something they get to find out in Ezekiel, right? Wonder if Putin has read Ezekiel. Apparently he knows about the Prince of ROSH prophecies, so it's interesting that he would be kind of deceived. It's funny how you can know about it and still be deceived about it. It's like Nebuchadnezzar, or even Pharaoh, but with Moses. But Nebuchadnezzar, you know, he knew all these prophecies that Daniel told him. He's like, this is going to happen to you. And he's just like, oh, yeah, that's horrible. But he's like, well, whatever. You know, Hezekiah, too. He's like, well, as long as I have peace and prosperity in my lifetime, you know, it's just kind of like clued out. So U.S. has asked Israel for potential energy assistance to Europe. So they're basically putting that they're putting that wrench in the mix because Israel's trying to walk the line and be the middleman and be friends. But the U.S. is kind of saying, no, you're going to provide oil for us. And Israel's probably like, shh, keep it down. You know, shh, Russia's going to hear you, man. Don't talk about the oil openly. They're going to know. And then they're going to want to come and take our oil. They're going to want to stop us. You know, so they're kind of publicly putting it out there, asking Israel for assistance because they're not very bright, or they are. They're trying to destroy Israel too, because that's the reality of it, is the people in the West want to destroy Israel too, but they act like Israel's friends. But kind of like Ukraine's being left high and dry, Israel's probably going to be left high and dry as well. That's why God's going to have to step in and take care of it himself. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's move on from there a little bit, and I'll get more in your comments on that at the end, but I want to talk about a little bit about dates, okay? I haven't talked about dates in a while, but we do have some dates coming up here, and one of them is what's known as Purim, okay? And this is a pretty significant date. It would be very interesting because now, remember, when the temple was destroyed back in the day, multiple times, it was destroyed on the same day. Can you believe that? On the same day. On the same day, they destroyed the temple. The first time was Nebuchadnezzar, right, in Babylon. And then they destroyed it the second time. I guess they're counting, are they talking about Nero's? Because I think they're talking about Nero, when Nero destroyed it, that it was on the same day. Now, I may be confusing that, so someone else can tell me if I'm wrong about that. But they said it was the same day. The same day that they destroyed it the first time was the same day they destroyed it the second time. Can you believe that? So wouldn't it be interesting, and would not be far-fetched to think, with everything building up right now, now granted that would have to happen in like 10 days, but could it be that Purim, which is celebrated on the 17th of March, right, coming up here, and the eve of Purim is on the 16th, right? As you know, the story is from the book of Esther, okay? And in Esther, I won't read the whole thing to you, but basically what happened is, who was it? Haman. Haman was this sinister schemer, right? He was a man of intrigue, and he basically worked to the king and said, got him to pass a law, similar to what happened to Daniel, actually. The wise men in Daniel's time did the same thing, but they got him to pass a law against the Jews, right, to kill all the Jews. And he kind of got tricked into it. Then he didn't realize his own wife was a Jew, Esther. And when he found that out, he was upset. And so he's like, well, I can't do anything about it now. This always happens too. The kings are like, well, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. It's like, well, you're the king. What do you mean there's nothing you can do? But they're always just like, I can't do anything. It's the law of the Medes and the Persians. What can I do? So anyway, they pass these laws and then they feel dumb later for passing it. That's why they invented a Congress, to hopefully avoid some of those laws that shouldn't get passed. But, when the whole Congress has been taken over by the devil, that's another story. But in any case, so he passes this law, or passes this edict, hey, go kill all the Jews, right? So people are getting ready to kill the Jews on this specific day. So he's like, well, I can't really stop that, but what I can do is I can put out a new edict and say, but the Jews have a right to kill you back. So basically, you can try to kill the Jews, but I'm going to throw some fun in the mix and let the Jews defend themselves and actually kill you in return. So it says, in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same day when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put into execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned into the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. I'm doing KJV here. I'm getting a little tongue-tied with the Old English. The Jews assembled in the cities in the old provinces of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, the king's administrators helped the Jews because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace, his reputation. Okay, so basically, long story short, the Jews defend themselves so the people aren't successful. They don't destroy the Jews. The Jews are defended on that day, right? God comes to their rescue, essentially. Esther was, for such a time as this, she took a stand and was God's woman who stood up to the king and, brought this about. And basically all the evil guys get hung and killed, which is also the same day, same time that the World War II criminals got hung and killed, which is an interesting parallel as well, because they killed all the Jews in World War II, and then they were hung and killed. Very symbolic, very similar situation there. Well, that's what happened. Haman's he created a place to hang all the Jews, and he ended up getting hung on it himself, which is also very interesting. So it's interesting to think on this Purim date that's coming up that it could be a parallel where they come together on the Battle of Megiddo. We could argue, or they surround, or Luke 21 and Ezekiel 38, they surround Jerusalem, right, with their armies. Now, again, it would have to happen in 10 days if it's going to happen at this time. But it's possible. Anything's possible, right? He invaded in a day the other place. At the rate they're going, it's possible. He may already have army people moving down there. He's got some army bases in Syria and so forth. So who knows? However you want to look at it. But they could assemble, and they could kind of come to attack Israel on the Purim anniversary. Same kind of deal. And then Israel is able to defend themselves, only it's God this time who defends them with his presence and the earthquake and so forth, as we read about in Ezekiel. So interesting to think about. It could happen as soon as 10 days from now, according to the calendar, right? Interesting to think about. Okay, let's look at a few other things here as I start to wrap up what I wanted to share, and then I want to kind of open it up to your guys' discussion. But I want to talk about sort of the timelessness of the Bible. And my wife kind of brought this point up again too, so I want to give her props once more. Thanks, wifey, you're the best. I need a little. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. I got to take a little water for a moment. Thank you. Okay, so anyway, she brought this up, which I thought was a good point, and I'm like, you know what? That's interesting because that ties into the Antichrist. The Antichrist. Let's talk a little bit about the Antichrist, shall we? The Bible says in Hebrews, says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Well, what does that mean? It basically means he's timeless, right? He's timeless. He's the same yesterday, same today, same forever. Forever. For all time, okay? He's timeless, okay? He's a timeless Christ. Okay, it wasn't like he just came at one time back in, the turn, back 2,000 years ago at some people think it was 5 BC or 4 BC, and there's debate on exactly when he came, but the point is, he didn't just come that one moment in time for 33 years, right? He's He's been here yesterday, today, forever. He's eternal. He's an eternal being, okay? So it's timeless. And in Ecclesiastes it says, what has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. And I kind of talked about this in another video, but there's a lot of parallels in Scripture and in the Bible where things kind of happen again and again and again and again. You know, when Hitler came along, people thought, oh, this is it. He's the Antichrist. This is the end of the world. And in a sense, it was. Only the world didn't end, right? And that's happened before with other dictators. When Nero came around, oh, this is it. He's the guy. He's the Antichrist. It's the end of the world. And in a sense, it was. You know, he tore down the temple and a lot of persecution. But life went on, right? So basically, as above, so below. There's these parallels, these cycles that happen throughout time again and again and again and again and again. And they come and they go and they come and they go. And eventually, God says, okay, fine, that's enough. You know, we've done it. We've fulfilled it. You know, 6,000 years, okay, I think that's good. Let's do 1,000 years of peace on the earth, 1,000-year reign, and then we'll do a new heaven and earth, and we'll start over again. But basically, life just cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles through all these times. And so when we read in the Bible things like, you know, the abomination that causes desolation, you could say, well, that hasn't happened yet. But others would say, well, yes, it has. You know, and we can argue, well, yeah, it was Antiochus Epiphanes. And you can say, well, yeah, it was. You can also say, yeah, it's the Dome of the Rock. And you can say, well, yeah, it was. I said, well, no, it's when the Antichrist is going to come and put up the temple and defile it. And that may be so, right? Well, we have yet to see exactly how that's going to play out, but it may play out exactly that way. But the question is, which one is the abomination causes desolation? Well, Jesus already knew, and I talked about this in another video, but Jesus already knew about the abomination of desolation. That happened before him. That happened with Antiochus Epiphanes back in the time of the Maccabees, which was like 600 years before Jesus, right? So he used that term as a way to help people understand, because they knew what that meant, right? They knew about Hanukkah. They celebrated Hanukkah. They knew about the Maccabees. They knew about that whole thing with Antiochus Epiphanes. They knew about all that, what went down there. So he would talk about the abomination of desolation. They'd be like, oh, yeah, we know what that is, right? Because they had already gone through it. Or at least historically they'd already gone through it. I mean, those people right there hadn't, because that was 600 years before, but it was part of their history, right? So it had already happened. What had been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So, you know, and that's where we get into like ancient aliens and things like that, where people talk about all the technology that's been around forever, and this technology was around, and that may be so. I mean, nuclear bombs may have been used before, you know, for all we know, back in the old days, you know, these huge obelisks that they don't know how anybody could have built them or moved them or whatever. We don't even have technology now to move them. You know, we don't really know exactly everything that happened in the past, right? All we know is that what has been done before will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun, that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Well, it got me thinking about the Antichrist, okay? So if you go online, I'm sure you maybe have seen these pictures, right? These are pictures of some well-known faces. So they like to call them celebrities. I'm not sure what we're celebrating exactly, but they're people who are well-known, I'll just say that. And you know their faces, and they're put next to other people who look almost, if not identical, to these people who are from another time. Now you could argue, well, maybe these pictures are fake, maybe they're photoshopped, maybe it is that person and they took like an old picture. That could be. But some of these do seem authentic, and you kind of wonder, okay, this is really weird. Like this one of Eddie Murphy, that looks pretty close. I mean, Matthew McConaughey, that looks pretty close. Nicolas Cage. I mean, they look pretty close. Even this one of Johnny Depp looks pretty close. I mean, wow. This Jennifer Lawrence, who's this late night Jimmy Fallon. This one of, I can't see it too well here, but this one of, I've seen it before, the Jay-Z one looks pretty good. I just saw this one for the first time, Keanu Reeves. I'm like, wow, that looks a lot like Keanu Reeves. That's like a painting. You got John Travolta. This guy looks just like Bruce Willis. I'm like, wow, Bruce Willis was, and that's a famous general from World War II. I'm forgetting right now which which guy it is. It's a famous general though. And then you got Robin Williams here. I mean, just a ton of guys. I thought this one was interesting. This Jeff Goldblum guy definitely looks like his brother or something. Like, wow, these are very interesting. So interesting, right? And here's the African-American Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just when you thought they thought of everything. I mean, they really have. So anyway, very interesting, right? All these comparisons, all these similarities. So you think, wow, I mean, does God kind of have one sort of stock of people, like of design, and kind of he runs through them, kind of runs through the make, and once that generation has passed far enough, then he can bring that out again, or just happens to combine, the DNA happens to combine again to bring about someone who looks pretty much identical to that person in the past. What's also interesting is that we have pictures of these people, which means they were probably well-known people of their time too, perhaps, because not everybody had their picture taken. Not everybody would have a picture that might still be around. So that's also very interesting to think about as well. These time travelers, right? There's a lot of questions like that. But you think about this whole idea of everything repeating, and that we're living kind of in a cycle. We're living in this cycle. And it's a cycle designed to bring about a specific result, which is us being saved, right? That's the goal of this cycle, this light and darkness, this good and evil, and this battle that keeps going on and on and on. The Battle of Megiddo, many other battles were fought in Megiddo, right? So we're waiting for that final one, but there's other battles that have been fought there. Maybe they thought those were those final battles. It's all how you want to look at it. So when you're in that time, you think it's the end time, and I know when I first came across this topic, I was like, well, everybody thinks they live in the end time. That's just natural. Everybody thinks they're related to a famous person, or that they are reincarnated as a famous person, because everybody wants to think they're famous, or they're important, or they're significant, right? So they're like, oh, I used to be Napoleon, or oh, really? Well, so did 10 other guys. So which one of you really was Napoleon? We all were, So it's that whole kind of thing. But this whole principle of things repeating, I find interesting. So when I thought about the Antichrist, this is a famous picture that's been put forward. Akhenaten and you-know-who sharing a face that looks very similar. Of course, you're going off a stone statue, and I've seen other statues that maybe don't look quite as dead on, but very interesting to think about as well. And even Putin, who knows? Is he even still the same guy? There's pictures of him that look completely different than how he looks now, right? I mean, look at that picture from 91. I'm like, is that even the same guy? I mean, I know they talk about this with Paul McCartney, right? But you think, was he replaced? I mean, was he cloned? Was this what happened here? Is this his brother? What's going on? I mean, he almost looks like his head's a different shape, or a longer, or something. I mean, something like the eyes are completely different, or the nose is longer, or something. I mean, it's just something that seems very different about this guy. Now, maybe it's just a lot of plastic surgery, and people do that as well, and I'm sure he probably has, since he's in power and his face is on everything. But what a difference from 2013, which you see at the bottom there. Maybe I can move this up a little bit. It's a little bit low here. Hold on a second. Is this it? Oh, this one. I don't think you can see the dates. There it is. Yeah, very interesting. So I looked at the Bible and I was like, well, how might this relate to the Antichrist? Okay. Well, in Revelation 17, it talks about the Antichrist, and it says, if I can get there, it's describing these 7 kings, okay? And it's saying, and there were 7 kings. 5 are fallen. Actually, I want to go back to 8 first. It says, in verse 8, it says, the beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So he was, and he is not. So he was, but he currently is not. But he shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So he was, now he's not, but then he will come back again out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And it made me think, and I forgot to look it up, and I'm looking it up right now real quick. I want to look up what year Akhenaten, because I remember learning about him in school because he looked so interesting. Akhenaten year. Let me just see what year this guy walked the earth. Kind of curious about this. So they claim Akhenaten was from 1353 to 1336 BC. Some say 1351, 1330. That was his reign anyway. Okay, so definitely before this being written in Revelation, at least, right? So, the idea that it could have been Akhenaten is an interesting thought, to say that he once was, now is not, and yet will be again, is kind of an interesting thought, because it could be Akhenaten, because Akhenaten was before this time. So that's interesting to think about. So anyway, he once was, now is not, he will send out of the bottomless pit. And it says, behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Okay? Again, a little bit confusing the way it's worded there, but I get the impression of a guy who was, but he's not here right now, but he's going to come back. Okay? And he says, and here's the mind that which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the women sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, and even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Man, talk about confusing to read, right? I mean, if we didn't have a concept of the rest of this stuff, we would be totally lost, wouldn't we? Okay, so let me read it once in the NIV just to make it a little maybe clear. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come out of the abyss and go to the destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished, and they will see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. So just pretending is Akhenaten. I'm not saying who this beast is, but I think if it was somebody historical, like we've seen Akhenaten, we've seen the statues, right? And if he came up out of the abyss looking just like that, wearing the pharaoh garb and everything, and it looked just like Akhenaten, I could see why we might be astonished. Like, wow, it's Akhenaten. Like, he once was, now is not, and yet will come. Like, it seemed like it might be somebody who's recognizable, because we're astonished that it's him, whoever he is. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Again, not much less confusing, but a little easier to read that way. Okay. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings, have not received king. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. So a lot of people have talked about these scriptures describing these kings. And some say that Mr. Blondehair, as I'm calling him, the former commander-in-chief, that he was one of these guys. He's one of the 5. Some say he is actually the 8th king. And then others believe it was the guy before him, Mr. O, and that he was the one who is actually the one who looks like Akhenaten, and that he is the one who see, the 5 have fallen, the others not yet come, he will remain for a little while. So it makes you wonder, is that the one who Mr. Blondehair, who got it stolen from him, so maybe he only remained for a little while. But it says the beast who once was not, now is not, is an 8th king who belongs to the 7. So he was one of the 7, but now he's this 8th king because he was not, and then he comes back, maybe because he was taken out of leadership. I don't know. Interesting thought. So just wanted to share that with you. But I thought it was interesting because it kind of ties in with this whole idea of what was will be again, right? And this is how God operates. When Satan in Revelation 12 is cast out of heaven, right? It says in Revelation 12, it says the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent. Okay, he's old serpent called the devil, right? Because he's been around a long time. And Satan, which deceived the whole world, he was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Well, this is obviously talking about a past event. I mean, we read about that in Ezekiel. I think we also read about it in Isaiah maybe as well. But this talking about Satan being cast out of heaven to the earth. I mean, it's not like Satan's still up in heaven hanging out with God, right? I mean, he appears before God like he does in Job. He has to report to God, right? And he's still under God's authority. But we're kind of in Satan's prison here. This is what this earth is, right? God put us here to be tested by the devil while we're down here, right? But he's been given dominion over this world, and he can give the kingdoms to whoever he wishes, like he offered to Jesus, right? And Jesus turned him down, but he has that power, and that's why people turn to the devil, and they get power, and they rise up, because this is the world. That's all you get is this world, but you don't get heaven. So Satan was cast out of heaven already. So what is this talking about in Revelation 12? Like it's a future event. Well, again, it's like things repeat themselves. There's a repetition. There's things that will be again. So we have to wonder how this is going to go down. Like what what's going to happen here, where Satan kind of gets cast down again, is that he gets brought out of the abyss, and we see him in physical form being cast down again with his angels. That would be kind of interesting, and they go throughout the earth, and we actually see devils and creatures. Really terrifyingly interesting, but interesting nonetheless. But again, you get this sort of idea of like past events being repeated, and that's kind of what we're living through here on this earth. So is this the end time? Well, there's a lot of things that point to it that have never pointed to it this way ever before in history. And I think even if you look back at like the time of Hitler and other times, you didn't have all those prophecies coming together the way they're coming together now. You didn't have all the things being revealed that are being revealed now. So it seems like this is going to finally be the end of the cycle, that God's going to finally say, okay, this is the last time we're going through this. This is really the end this time, and we're doing it. It seems that way. Otherwise, there's a whole lot of things that are going to have to line up all over again. I don't see how that is going to happen logically. It doesn't seem to fit. It doesn't seem to fit for it to be God has to do it all over again. You know, there's just too many things lining up now that this really has to be it, guys. So kind of exciting. Now we're waiting for that hook to be pulled into the Prince of ROSH's jaw so he can get down here and get it over with. I mean, it's sad. I don't want to see people go to war. I don't want to see people die in war. But unfortunately, it's prophesied. Unfortunately, it's just the way it's going to be. So we want to try to make it as painless as possible, try to comfort people as much as possible, try to help people, pray for people, and offer comfort to the Ukrainians and other people that are going suffering, and Israelites who are going to suffer. They have to run to the mountains, flee to the mountains, but hopefully that's fleeing to God's mountain, and God's going to take us as they fly away and vanish, as we talked about in another video. So in Hebrews it says, just as people are destined to die once and after that to face judgment. So I'm not saying people are reincarnated, because that wouldn't follow this, unless people die once, face judgment, and then they're born again. But that wouldn't really line up, wouldn't really make sense either. It seems more that there's a repetition, but it's not the same every time. Because it'd be like, oh, you come back and do it again. Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying people are being reincarnated, because God says we die once and face judgment. That's it. He's not going to put us through that again. You know, wouldn't make much sense either if we were the same people going through the same life thing again, because the purpose was whether or not we choose God, and so we could test our hearts and see who we really are. But it's something intriguing to think about. And let me see, what's this one? Revelation 13. Something here. Just want to make sure I share all this stuff, because I kind of. Oh yeah, there was something here. What was it? Let me see. Giants on the shore. Story. Oh, okay. Right. This is where it talks about Christ. Right. It says here in Revelation 13:8, it says, all inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. So Jesus was crucified even before the world was created, or from the very creation. Like, that was already done, essentially. It was already in the cards. So when he actually came and was crucified, it was like the fulfillment of that, but it's something that had already been planned, already been figured out long before the world was created. So it's what I'm trying to get across is there's a timelessness, there's an eternity that we're part of. We think of things in a linear time, but it's really not like that. It's more like a stamp, like we're kind of putting our stamp along the timeline, but really it's timeless, and really everything it's on a cycle. It's on a loop, and it just keeps looping through with a different group of people, a different set of circumstances, but it's kind of like the same things repeating until finally the tape just wears out, and it's like, okay, that's it. We're done with that tape. We're going to put a new tape in. You know, that's kind of what God is doing. In Genesis 26 and 1:26, it says, God says, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness." So Jesus was crucified, slain from the creation of the world. This is the creation of the world. So God says, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish, of the birds of the air, fish of the air, over all the earth, creeping on the ground, etc." So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created male and female. He created them, male and female, guys. There's two. Okay, so and that's repeated in Genesis 5. But God says, "Let us make man in our image." Well, who's He talking to? If God is one God, is He talking to Himself? Well, Jesus was there from the beginning, guys. That's what it says in John chapter 1. It says, well, Jesus even said it, actually, but John 1 says it too. Actually, before I wanted to show you John 1. Hold on, my computer just went kooky on me. Hold on, let me show you this in John 1, and then we'll begin to wrap things up. I just had a couple more points I wanted to share with you guys. I got to cram in one show in a week, you know. Okay, so John 1. But if you want to see me do more shows, please help support our show. You can do it through Zelle or PayPal. I appreciate your support. And then I can hopefully come back and do more shows more often. But in John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, okay? So he was there in the beginning, guys. This is all a cycle. It's all a cycle. And then finally, the last one there is Jesus says, verily, truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am. Now, Abraham came, you know, thousands of years before Jesus. And Jesus is telling them, they're like, he says, your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. And they're like, you're not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? He says, before Abraham was born, I am. And then they picked up stones to stone him. But basically, he's like, look, I've been around. I'm eternal, okay? I'm before Abraham. So I'm saying all this because there's a cycle going on. And it's hard to put it in words, but the time frame we're living on is a cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. So when people talk about, oh, a lot of stuff in Revelation was already fulfilled. Yeah, it was. But it will also be fulfilled again because it keeps repeating. What has been done before will be done again, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating until it finally gets fulfilled. Kind of a deep thing to think about. Let me get back a little bit to some of the easier things to think about. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was kind of interesting to ponder a little bit. All right, so this is currently the battle going on in Ukraine, guys. That's the battle, right? So this is a battle map. You can see it at liveuamap.com. Check that out. So that's where you can see there's missiles being dropped here. There's fires going on over here. There's looks like some missiles being launched from the ground over here. And you got planes going over. So just kind of interesting stuff. Let me there's one more thing I want to show you, a video that I didn't get in it's a short video, shortest video. It's only like a minute or 2 minutes maybe. I think it's less than that. But I just want to show you this real quick because I meant to put it in a past video and I forgot to put it in there. So let me show you this real quick, and then we'll wrap it up with some chat and maybe look at a couple news things or something and just hang out a little bit. Let me see. Let me block this and let me show you this. Okay, so real quick, what you're about to see is basically on 2/22 of this month, this year, February, and you might have already seen this. Again, it's kind of a little bit old news, but I didn't get to share it. I wanted to share it. So 2/22. Right, President B was supposed to come and speak to everybody at 1 o'clock, right? But what happens? He doesn't come and speak until exactly 2/22 on 2/22. Now, why is this significant? Other than that just being kind of interesting, is because if you add 220, if you had 2 plus 2 plus 2, that's one set, 2/22. That's 6. You add the time, 2 plus 2 plus 2, that's also 6. And then you got the year 2022, which is also 2 plus 2, and that's also 6. The fact that this happened, guys, is not a coincidence, obviously. But let's take a look at it, okay? So check this out. If you haven't
companies listed there, but for individuals who are concerned about...
Oh, no. Who is this guy walking out at 2:21?
Yes, and just obviously watching that podium as you are getting ready for the president, you're going to see it worldwide. It's a combination of the fear of what the impact could be on energy prices.
Are we going to get the 222?
Adds to the already very serious inflation challenges that the United States is facing.
There it is, 222.
That drop in the market obviously significant. They are expecting an increase in both gas prices.
Is he going to come out in the next minute?
As a result of what is happening here and as a result of further sanctions. The U.S. government
guys.
heard about any kind of
Either way,
Russian oil. If they were to do that, yes, that's going to have a direct impact on the U.S. The two countries that have felt it the most,
Either way, guys, it's 222 on 222.22, and here he comes. Oh my gosh, he came out at 222. Oh my gosh, he came out. Oh my gosh, no way. Look at that smile. He knows it too. He came out at 222.
Okay, so now you might think, maybe you don't think much about that because maybe you haven't looked a lot into this. But basically, it's what's called gematria. And these Satanists, they love it, man. They love the numbers. They play by the numbers. They think there's power in the numbers, and maybe there is, at least satanic power, because they certainly are getting a lot done. But, God uses numbers too, because God will do things with me. He'll show me numbers all day long. They're very interesting. But the fact that happened exactly at 222, that's obviously not a coincidence. And some say he might even come out at 222 and 22 seconds. But the fact that he came out at 222 on 2022, again, that's another 666 sign. And there's a lot of those out there. This just happens to be one that is pretty undeniable. Like, they obviously did it on purpose. Now you can say, well, maybe they were just doing it as a joke or something. Yeah, they don't joke like that. It's a little more significant with them. They take the numbers very seriously. They think the numbers are the power, or that help give them power. So they do a lot of things with the numbers, and you'll find that online. So I just wanted to share that. I thought that was kind of interesting. Cool. That's basically what I wanted to share today. And I want to open it up to discussion, and maybe we'll look at some news and some other things a little bit here while we're talking. But want to hear what you guys think. So let me read some of your comments and see what you guys are thinking out there. So let's see. George, remember our only job is to spread the seed when soul lands on God's hands. Jilliana, all right, Jilliana, thanks for coming by. George, parable of the sower. Love you, Mikhail. God bless you and your family. Hey, thanks, George. I appreciate it, man. Also, keep your eye on Damascus. Oh, yeah. Well, exactly. So the Golan Heights, Damascus, I mean, it's all part of it. Damascus has to be bombed as well. And we talked about that in other videos. But, yeah, it's all part of it. So the Golan Heights might be the premise for Russia to get involved, because they say, oh, well, we're just defending Syria and they're Golan Heights. This has nothing to do with your oil, Israel, or the fact that you're an ally to the West and we want to get rid of you. No, it has nothing to do with that at all. We're just defending Syria and the Golan Heights. But you're right. I mean, it could be that Israel finally bombs Damascus. Damascus is brought to ruins, as the scripture says, and then Russia gets involved, because then they're really justified. I'm like, well, we had to defend them. I mean, they bombed Damascus and they're attacking the Golan Heights. They're trying to take the Golan Heights. So, yeah, great point. So, what are the chances Obama is Satan? Well, I don't know if he is quote unquote Satan, but Satan may be working through him. Satan obviously works through a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, it talks about all these beasts and creatures in Revelation. So I'm thinking we're gonna see some real demonic activity going on, even greater than just possession. I mean, like actual demons coming out of the earth, like something like Ghostbusters, where the ghost tank breaks open and all the ghosts escape. I mean, it sounds like it's gonna be something along those lines coming out of hell. Jesus said he foresaw Satan as lightning from the heaven, using the heavens. Strong's dictionary, lightning is Barak and heavens is Mama. Yep. We've talked about that in other videos too. Yep. That Barak means lightning, and Obama means from a high place, and so it's lightning from a high place. Exactly. That's what Jesus said. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So yep, that's right. Brian Hanfield. Hey, sorry I'm late. That's okay, Brian. Well, hopefully you go back and watch the rest of it. We packed a lot in. I tried to make it a little shorter tonight. So I tried to prepare ahead of time so I could kind of get it all in, because there's a lot in there. But we covered a lot of interesting ground tonight. So hopefully you'll get a chance to go back and check that out. Want to maybe just while we're here, maybe I'll just look at a couple news sites with you all and just kind of see what's going on. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. So let me just see what's up, what's going on in the wicked world of war. Let's see what it says. Putin authorizes counter-nuclear strike against NATO countries. Oh, how nice. Well, we knew that was coming. But isn't that old? Authorizes counter-nuclear strike? I thought I read that last time. Let me see. Oh, yeah, that's 227. Right, we haven't been bombed yet with nuclear weapons. Okay, so he's authorizing it, but it hasn't happened yet. or we wouldn't be talking about it right now. At least if we had been directly hit. Let's see what's really going on. Oh wait, that's still 227. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting old news. Let me go back. Oh, it's because I'm on a specific page. Okay. War news 247. Well, that's opening up. Let's go over here. Let's see. I'm looking at this is a Russian news site. It's interesting to hear their side. We get our side all the time. It's interesting to hear their thoughts, on it. Ceasefires over the siege of Mariupol continues. Okay, this might be old as well. Let me do this again. Zelensky and Putin may hold a personal meeting in Turkey. Well, they're just meeting everywhere, aren't they? First it was on the border of Belarus, and they're meeting there. It just all seems like a ruse, the whole meeting stuff, So now they're going to be the middle guy. So see, they're not using Israel. Notice Israel wanted to be the peacemaker, and they didn't choose that. It seems like they're going with Turkey now as being the middle guy. And Turkey is kind of one of those fence sitters, right? Because they're kind of NATO. I mean, they are technically. They've even got a nuclear base there in the Fig Tree Grove, which we talked about last time. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Because Turkey now, this makes sense, right? Of course, Israel wasn't going to be the peacemaker. This is all biblical, guys. ROSH is teaming up. Gog and Magog is teaming up with Turkey. Let's see, is this it? No, that's not it. I want to show that. That's just at the end. Wait, where's the one I want to show you? No, not that one. This one. All right. So, right, as we've talked about before, this is ROSH teaming up with Meshach. Sounds like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. No, Meshach, which is Tubal, Gomer, Beth, Togarmah. Okay, that's Turkey, right? So this is what's happening, guys. It's happening right now. So of course, Israel didn't get the bid. Israel wanted to be the middleman, and guess what? No, because you know why? Because Putin wants to invade Israel. So Putin's basically doing the same thing to Israel that the West did to Putin. The West didn't want to be friends with Putin because they're like, no, we don't want you part of our team. Because we're going to invade you. We're going to use you as the man to take out. So we're going to slowly move in on you and take you out altogether and take all your resources. So we don't want to be friends with you because we're going to destroy you. I suppose they could have brought him in and tried to take him out that way, but then maybe he would have learned too much about what they're doing. But anyway, so he's doing the same game. He's like, no, Israel, you're not going to be the peacemaker because we're about to invade you. As soon as I'm done with this Ukraine thing, or I got this kind of under control, I'm going to shimmy on down there. Who knows? Maybe in the next 10 days and try to take you out. I won't succeed. The Lord's going to take out me and my armies, but I'm going to team up here with Turkey and Persia and Put and Cush, also known as Libya and Ethiopia. And then I'm going to come over there and take you out, good old Israel. At least I'm going to try. Right, so it's interesting that he's meeting in Turkey, not Israel, and that Israel's not being the middleman for those two. I mean, Israel's too much of a war-torn place anyway, to be honest. I mean, Turkey is, if I were in his position and I didn't know anything about biblical prophecy, I would say, well, yeah, Turkey's a more logical one because they're closer, they're more kind of in the middle of everything that's going on, and they're more stable. I mean, Israel's not a very stable place for anybody to meet for anything. Turkey's more stable. Nobody's really attacking Turkey at the moment, So probably the wiser choice just from a purely secular standpoint. But from a biblical standpoint, it's huge because he's teaming up with Turkey, guys. He's teaming up with Turkey. This is it. See, Turkey secretly, I think, wants to be east and with Russia. I mean, they're playing the NATO game, but I think you're going to see Turkey kind of pull out of NATO here pretty soon and join Russia. I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's what we know biblically is going to happen, but I can feel it. It's like, it just makes more sense. Don't you see this Erdogan guy with Putin a lot more than you see him with the West? He just doesn't fit with the West. So I think that's what you're going to see happen. He's like, and he's kind of already, I mean, map-wise, he's already kind of in the middle of it. So he's surrounded. I mean, you got Russia here, and if he takes Ukraine, and then you got Syria and Iraq here, they're on Russia's side. So Turkey's kind of outnumbered. I mean, it's almost like Turkey now is going through the Russia problem where he's got the east on his border, right? Erdogan does. And Erdogan kind of wants to be the Antichrist anyway or something, so from what I've heard. So I think he's kind of like, yeah, I think I'm going to pull out of this whole NATO thing anyway, because, like, you got Ukraine, which is above me here. You got Syria below me. You got Russia coming in behind me, and they're kind of all against now the West. So I'm kind of outnumbered. You know, Turkey's outnumbered here. They're surrounded. Turkey's surrounded. So I think Turkey's going to find themselves real quickly going, yeah. Secretly, he's probably already saying, I'm with you, Putin. I'm with you. I'm playing the NATO game right now, but I'm with you. That's what I imagine is happening behind closed doors. And it's biblical. He's teaming up with him, and the hook's going to be brought in. They're going to come down. And boy, they're not that far. Turkey's right there. That grove, that fig tree grove is right there and can launch a nuke at Israel if they want to. That's very interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. Let's see what else is going on here. Ukrainian military to blow up experimental nuclear reactor at Kharkov Institute. Okay. So they're doing a preemptive blow up, before Russia takes it or something? Ukraine's going to blow up their own experimental nuclear reactor? That sounds real smart. Like, what? I don't think Russia really wants to defile the whole land. You know, I don't think Russia's really out to blow up nuclear reactors. It doesn't really make sense. If they want to take over a land, they don't want to radiate their own soldiers. So I don't think they're going to intentionally blow up nuclear reactors. I think they're going to try to maybe take them over. That would make sense from an energy standpoint, but I don't think he wants to really blow them up because, I mean, he could threaten that, but I don't think it's very wise because now then it's just going to put him in danger and put his country in danger because it's too close to Russia. He doesn't want that nuclear fallout blowing into his country. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to push for that. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let me go back over here to the main site and see if there's anything else here. Let me go back over this guy. See if we got something new now. Here we go. Now we're talking. Now what are we looking at? Nuclear bomb going off. I mean, you're going to see this image so much that by the time it happens, you're like, well, there it is. Extraordinary. Russian Ministry of Defense. Okay. Wait, I missed that one. I want to read that one. Russian Ministry of Defense. Ukrainians have been trapped with an explosive nuclear reactor in Kharkov. They are preparing a radioactive contamination of the area. Yeah, well, that's what they're saying there. Okay, now that's a much more gripping title than they're going to blow up their experimental nuclear reactor. Yeah, again, not the brightest thing, even for the Ukrainians to do. It's like, you're going to kill your own people. Why would you do that, man? That's just not smart. The Russians can leave. You still got to live there. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense for you to do that to your own country. Because now you're going to have Chernobyl in your own country. Why would you do that? That's not smart. Don't do that. Not wise. The Russians can go, well, we'll just go away. we'll go around this way. I mean, they'll put on hazmat suits or something and get the job done and then leave. I mean, but you'll be stuck with that radiation. So not the smartest thing to do. Was it preparation for World War II? World War II? Russia launches Russian net disconnects from the World Wide Web. Ooh, that's a big one. So Russia has disconnected from the World Wide Web. Have they really? I want to take a look at that one. All right, let me read some of your comments while I'm going over to this news article. Let's see. I feel bad for all the regular Russian people who are suffering from these sanctions. Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for everybody. I feel bad for the people. I feel bad for all of our people. And going through the ridiculous lockdown time and going through the poison and all this stuff. I mean, we've just been lied to and lied to and lied to and lied to. We continue to be lied to. And it's always the people who pay the price. You know, these dictators get away with it. They go to their bunkers. They escape. They get their billions. And it's always the average Joes that are getting knocked out. But let me take a look at this. The fact that they're disconnecting from the World Wide Web. That's huge, guys. That's really big. Oh man, I don't know what this says. I'm gonna guess this is no, but I don't know. All right, let me see here. So Russia is disconnected from the World Wide Web. Oh, come on, man. I got to get this back into English again. So, it's hard to get the real news these days, guys, and who can you trust? You know, I don't know whether you can trust this site or not, but they tend to have the more edgier stuff going on. I mean, you obviously can't, just lies and propaganda all around. But I guess the way to test this is, are you able to communicate with your Russian friends in Russia? I'd love to hear from you guys if you're communicating with your Russian friends in Russia. I have some friends in Russia, some Russian friends. So if I can track them down, I might try to see if I can communicate them over the internet and see if that's true, if you can still reach them. So Russia launches RussiaNet, disconnects from the World Wide Web. It says Russia is preparing for a global conflict as Putin signs a decree. It's obviously not World War II, though, so I don't know why they said that, but it's World War III. This is it, World War III. Russia is preparing for a global conflict as Putin signs a decree disconnecting their country from the World Wide Web. That means that Russia considers itself to be receiving cyber attacks from NATO and is therefore entering a state of war with the NATO alliance. Well, they knew it would start with cyber attacks, and you know what? They're going to attack us too. So don't be surprised if our internet goes down as well, guys. If you're not prepared, prepare your soul. That's what really matters. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about other preparations, but whenever I talk to God about it, I always feel like God is saying, just be prepared with me. That's all you really need to be concerned about. Maybe that's because we're obviously going to be taken, Arpazo. That's the goal, and or taken out by a nuclear weapon, which it won't matter at that point either. I'd rather, if the nuclear bomb hits, I'd rather be taken out by it than have to live through it, because it sounds like it's a real hell to live through nuclear fallout and have your body slowly decay and die. You're going to die anyway from the radiation fallout, unless you're able to really get far away from it. So I'd almost rather just vaporize me instantly, like they did, like the people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, they were literally, you could see their outlines on the wall. They just got vaporized. So that seems like a better way to go if you have to stay. But God willing, biblically speaking, he's going to take us, Arpazo us out of here. So that's what we're looking forward to. But the fact that they're taking that down and starting their own Russian net, their own web, which is good. It's what we should do anyway. Why we handed our stuff over to the UN? Well, it's because it's the globalists. It was under Mr. O did that, and it was a global thing to do. This is primarily a defensive move that will allow the country to defend itself against cyber attacks. Okay. The relevant documents have already been published by the Russian Ministry of Digital Development. It's no coincidence that the Russian spy ship Yantar recently left its base in the Arctic. This whole war, guys, is it's not really a war for territory or the Ukraine or anything else. It's a war of ideals, and it always is a war of ideals. When people talk about the war in the Middle East, with the Muslims and the Jews, and people say, "Oh, those religious wars." It's always a religious war, always. Even when you don't think it's religious, it is, because it's about ideals. It's your ideals. It's your way of living, but it's also, in this case, it's a moral war even now. Because what he's fighting against is our lack of morality and ethics, because we've gone nuts, having men compete in women's sports, and we're just crazy, and what we're exposing our kids to, drag queen story time and things like that. It's like we've lost our minds. So he's seeing all that, and he's going, okay, forget that nonsense. You guys are nuts. We thought the West was cool. We thought you guys were going to lead us into a better future. You're obviously leading us into a degraded future that's only going to tear us apart. So no thanks. We don't want any part of that. We're putting the Iron Curtain back up, and we're going to go back and do our own thing, because you obviously have gone cuckoo. So that's basically how he's responding. So it really is a moral war. It's a war of morality. But God says, I am against you, Prince of ROSH. So God is kind of, it's interesting. It's like, it's a moral war, but that doesn't mean Putin's moral. You know what I mean? It's like he's just trying to operate he just doesn't want to go to cuckoo land, but that doesn't mean he's a moral guy either. So something to ponder there. So the Yantar houses 2 Russian-built submarines, a 3-person submarine. Connect everyone to RUNet. What the decree says, according to the documents, Russia plans to completely disconnect from the World Wide Web on March 11th. Wow, that's in 5 days, guys. So what that means, okay, let me tell you what this really means. That means that's when they're going to attack our web. Because once they're disconnected on March 11th, that means it's fair game. Once they're disconnected on March 11th, that means they got nothing to lose. So they're going to attack our web, and they're going to take down our web. They're going to cyber attack us up one side and down the other, because it's not going to affect them one bit, because nobody can retaliate. So they're going to take us out. They're going to take the internet out. They're sure going to try, man. And the globalists might even use it as a front to say, oh, they took out our internet, as a way, because this is all playing into globalist hands. The globalists want this war. They want this to happen. For all we know, Putin may have even orchestrated this with them. I mean, I know it sounds far-fetched, maybe, but it may not be as far-fetched as you think. I mean, he could be playing. It could all be playing a role. I mean, we don't even know if he's the same guy anymore. So it could all be playing a role to fulfill the globalist agenda that they've worked out as well. He could play, oh, they don't like me, they don't want to be my friends. You know, it's kind of like, you know, who else? Where else were they doing that recently? Where they were acting like enemies, but they were really working together. Oh, it'll come to me. But basically, you know, that could be what's going on too. They could be playing the enemy part, you know, good cop, bad cop, but he really is working with them to bring about this globalist agenda, and he's going to be a key player in the new world order. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they've talked to him and offered him that. So that could be, because they want this war to happen as a way to bring in more dictatorship, take away more of our freedoms, more of our rights, put us under martial law, say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, you have to do this. Oh, it's not because of the bug anymore. Now it's because of this. You know, they moved on because we got to the point. They know they can only play the cards so long, and then everybody reacts and says, hey, wait a minute, you need to go to jail. And then they switch it and they go, oh, no, you're fine. Go, you can take your mask off. Don't worry, you're okay. And you go back and play now. And then they switch to war. They switch to something else so that you don't take them all to put them all in prison where they belong, right? And this always happens every time you start to get the truth come out. Then they shift gears and they shift to something else, so you forget all about. Hopefully, and unfortunately, most people do. Most people do forget all about it, and they just move on to the next popcorn that they eat, right? So that means, guys, March 11th is a huge date to watch, because that means that could be the day that our internet goes out, because Russia has got nothing to lose then. They take everybody off their internet, put everybody on their internet, and then whammo. Or it might be a few days later on the 16th on Purim. That could be the day. I mean, then nobody can communicate, and they can move freely. They can come on down to Israel and do what they want there. That could be the moment, guys. Wow, that is a big deal. They've already sending to all holders telecommunications services, government telegrams. According to the documents, all servers and domains in Russia should be transferred to the Russian zone from March 11th. Detailed data. In case of using foreign hosting, it must be transferred to a Russian hosting. All public resources located in another domain. Wow, that's interesting. They've been cutting off a lot of Russian business, because I've been thinking about that too. Even when you host, you know, I'm thinking about domains and the hosting sites. You know, they're in different countries. I mean, your hosting site might be in Russia, for all you know. And that's something to consider. Companies must report measures Ministry of Digital Russia by March 15th at the latest. If there are any failures, let them know. March 15th at the latest, guys, right on Purim. Can you think about that? Wow, that's interesting. Wow. I mean, Israel's already surrounded, guys. You've got Russia. I mean, they've got no friends in that territory anymore. I mean, everybody's surrounding them. And now that Russia's coming against them, joining sides with the East, wow, Israel's going to be taken out real fast, or they're going to try to take them out real fast, which is great, because we want to go home. We don't want to see Israel taken out. And they won't succeed, at least initially. Well, no, I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to succeed at all, because God's going to take them out. And then the 7-year war is going to continue, but I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, am I seeing naked people on this page? No, she's got a shirt on. Okay. I'm like, what kind of ads are they putting on this site, man? I got to block the ads on this page. A few days ago, cut off internet connections instead. Do the people. Russia sources. Okay. Final rehearsal 2019. Plus lost sovereign internet, which aimed to protect the Russian part of the internet from external threats. It was the country's resource to what it called aggressive nature of U.S. national cybersecurity. So they had this plan since 2019. This is not a new idea. Also gives Putin more control over Russian citizens. Well, guys, I mean, when it comes to freedom, this is actually a good thing, because I know it's crazy to think that our hopes rely on two dictators, Putin and Xi Jinping. But without them, guys, we would already be in the New World Order. We'd already be in globalism. You know, globalists are having a tough time because you got these holdout dictators who are major superpowers. Now, it's easy to go into Iraq or someplace like that and take out a dictator, you know, because you got the physical might to do it, and they don't have nuclear weapons yet. That was the claim, that they had WMDs, but they didn't. But in this case, these guys have them, right? And so they're like, what do we do? It's like going into Florida, you know. What do you do when everybody can have a gun, you know, or America in general? But Florida's a little freer than some other states. But, you know, it's like, what do you do now? So that's their predicament, which is great for us who don't want to see the New World Order, you know, Antichrist beast system fully enacted. So, unfortunately, we have to rely on two other dictators to kind of stand in the way. But ultimately, that's a good thing to delay the one world order. But We kind of want to see it because we want to see Jesus come. We want Jesus to return. So it's a tough one. You don't want to see the ugliness that happens with it, but you want Jesus to come back. Wow, that is pretty cool, man. Let's see what else is going on. I mean, it's cool, and it's funny to say that it's cool because I know it sounds like, how could you say that's cool? But it is, because you're like, wow, it's biblical prophecy is happening, and Jesus is going to come sooner and sooner and sooner. With each move that's made, Jesus is sooner to arrive. So it's pretty awesome in that sense. All right, let's see what else is going on here. Shoot down 2 Russian fighters and 2 Ukrainian waves of planes and helicopters take off. Hell's Night starts in Belarus. Belarus? Really? So wait, we're moving into other countries now? Because I know Belarus was kind of involved, but not. I didn't think there was any fighting going on there. Shoot down 2 Russian fighters and 2 Ukrainian waves of planes and helicopters take off. Hell's Night starts in Belarus. Interesting. Okay. World War. If NATO countries give fighters and airports to Ukraine. Green light from U.S. Ukrainian fighters land in Romania. World War. If NATO countries. Unprecedented Russian attack on Greece over the war in Ukraine. What it says about the shipment of weapons. And what's going on here? This last one over here. Nightmare. Russian losses in 24 hours. The Russians lost 9 aircraft and helicopters, 6 pilots captured. The anti-aircraft guns and the Ukrainians are weeping. Here's the thing, guys. Even if you're not in biblical prophecy or any of that kind of stuff, you want the Russians to win this war, because it's actually going to be worse if they don't, right? Because Putin's frustrated, okay? The guy's frustrated. From 20 years, it's 20 years of built up. It's like God's building up his wrath. Well, the devil builds up his wrath too, right? So Putin's frustrated. 20 years of being kicked to the curb and get out of here, kid, you bother me. But I'm your biggest fan, and you're just kicking him out. Get out of here, Putin. That's what they've been doing to Putin for 20 years. So he's like, that's it. That's it. I'm taking something. I'm doing something about this. So in a way, the smartest thing Zelensky could have done is said, hey, listen, we're not going to join NATO. Don't worry. We're not joining NATO. Please don't invade us. Let's talk. He didn't do that. He keeps saying, I want to talk, but he never says, I'm not going to join NATO. Just say, I'm not joining NATO. Because NATO ain't got your back, as we can see. They're not helping you out. Now, technically, you're not part of NATO, sure, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but, I guess they're sending you some guns and some volunteers and some billions that will probably wind up in billionaire pockets and not in not to help you. But the reality is, they ain't got your back, bro. They don't really care about you. You're a lost leader for them. You're just an excuse. They're just using Ukraine as a way to get into the war. They don't care about Ukraine. Ukraine can perish as far as they're concerned. I hate to say it. I don't want it to perish. I'm not saying that for myself. I'm just saying that's how the West, or at least the NATO, at least the globalist cabal really feels. They don't care about NATO. They don't care anything about, they don't care about Ukraine. That's why Ukraine didn't get to sit down at the bargaining table. It was between Putin and NATO. But Ukraine's like, hey, they're talking about us, but we're not at the table. What's going on here? It's because they don't care about you. You're nothing to them. And so they're throwing you under the bus, bro. That's what's happening here. They're throwing you under the bus because they want this war, because they feel like it gives them the justification to then go in and take out Putin in some more dramatic way, to put in more lockdowns and more, intense systems for Americans and for the West. And so it feeds into their whole New World Order thinking, because they know this is going to happen anyway. That's why they kept moving in on the border. They were pushing the bear, poking the bear. Come on. And the bear's finally like, and so that's what's going on. So they wanted this to happen. This is all part of their plan for this to happen. Now they got to finesse it with the whole nuclear side of things, obviously. But they even want that to happen because they got their bunkers. They're like, we don't care. We'll launch some nukes. Bomb Babylon. That's okay. It's in Revelation 18. Go ahead, bomb Babylon, and we'll hide in our bunkers. We'll just hide out here and wait it out. We'll wait out the nuclear fallout. We got plenty of stuff stored up for many. They're like the people building the bigger barns. I got plenty stored up for many years. And then God says, you fool, tonight your life will be taken. Now who will get all your stuff? That's what's going to happen to them. But they're thinking, we got everything taken care of. We got bunkers and everything else, and we'll just wait out the nuclear fallout and find the places that are, send out our little drones that figure out where the radiation is and it isn't, and we'll just go in those places. And when the radiation finally dies down, we'll spread out again. So that's all part of their plan. They want the world under 500 million, and a nuclear war is right up their alley. That's how they're going to get there. Georgia Guidestones. I mean, go check it out. I mean, that's what they want. So that's how they're going to get there. Nuclear war. It's going to help bring that. So they're excited. They're loving it. They wanted this to happen. So whether Putin's on board with it or whether he just got pushed enough to where they wanted him to get to where he would strike back, it remains to be seen. I mean, he could have waited, I suppose, until Ukraine really had made a decision one way or the other, or he saw actual movement coming in. But then, as he said, maybe it would have been too late for him to respond. He wouldn't have the upper hand that he has. I don't know. I also think he wanted Ukraine as well, since he's using it as a front. He's a crook too, guys. I mean, he's a criminal too. There's no good guy, bad guy here. Even Zelensky seems like a plant, in my opinion. The guy's an actor. I don't buy that he's. I don't know. I don't know what to trust him. The only real people are the people. The people are the real people when it comes down to it. Whether it's Ukrainians, the Russians, Americans, whoever. We're the average Joes who just want to live our lives and be safe. So, anyway, you guys have any more thoughts here? Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. I feel bad. All the regular Russian people are suffering from these sanctions. Yep. All the globalists hiding in the bunkers fail to realize they are confining themselves to their own tombs. Yeah, that's true. Says Brian George. Yes, God will provide us as he did for the Jews Moses led out of Egypt. Well, yeah, I think about the land of Goshen, that God can protect us even if we have to stay through it all. He can provide for us, whether he takes us up to be with him, Isaiah 26, or if we have to endure part of it until the Great Tribulation, or it takes us another point. I mean, at some point, the appraisals happens, guys. 1 Thessalonians 4, Revelation 6, Ezekiel 38, Luke 21, Matthew 24, Mark 13. It all matches up. So it's got to happen, and it's a different thing than Revelation 19 when he comes on the white horse. It's a different experience. He's on the white horse. He's not standing there in the clouds, but for us to go stand before him, as we see in Revelation 6 and 7. So let's see. I believe America is a mystery. Babylon destroyed in an hour. Yeah, I think so too. I don't think any other city or country fits the description in Revelation about Babylon the way America does. America fits the description to a T. We are Babylon. Because Babylon is where God's holy people were taken to, like the Mayflower. You can think of the Mayflower, and where it was started there as this noble country, but it got corrupted, just like Babylon. Babylon's a corrupt place, and often Jerusalem gets called Babylon or Sodom, as a reference to sort of that worldliness. It's all that worldliness and that decadence that's come in. The ships are on the far sea, seeing Babylon destroyed in an hour, and that's where all the great things came out of Babylon. America was the leading country, and we're seeing the fall of Babylon as we speak. So yeah, I think it has to be Babylon in this time. If it's to be in this time, it's got to be America. Maybe in another time it would have been Babylon. It would have been another country, but in this time, I think America is the one that fits that description. Bro, getting ready for bed. Thought I'd stop by. Noah, what's up, man? Yes, changing gears as a diversion. All right, cool, man. Yeah, thanks for stopping by before you head to bed. Hopefully you'll catch more of the video later on. CF Neil, man, good to see you. Bioweapon labs in Ukraine along Russian border. Yeah, Fauci outsourced the gain of function. Yeah. Research not just to China. See, all that stuff gets wiped under the rug. It's the same thing that happened during 2016. All that stuff that came out about the blonde hair girl that was running for office, the one that is married to that other guy who was in office, that dynamic duo, Bonnie and Clyde, all that stuff came out about them and everything. As soon as the election, they just wiped it under the rug. They just pushed it under the rug. All that stuff that came forward with pizza and walking through. I can't say it, man. I can't say any of that stuff. But you know what I'm talking about. All that stuff came up and nothing was done about it. It's the same thing happening now. It's all come out. So like, ooh, man, we got to shift gears. We got to shift gears to another tragedy so they can forget about this and not put us in jail and not riot in the streets. Let's see. If only we'd riot in the streets, right? Ice cream time. Haagen-Dazs, vanilla Swiss almond, yum. Okay, sounds good. That all sounds very yummy. Birth control is sin. I got to be careful reading, guys. So sometimes I read something and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. Demographics are destiny. Be fruitful and multiply. Amen. Well, yes. I mean, certainly killing babies in the womb is a sin. There's no question about that. Yeah. So, woman's body, your choice. Well, baby has a choice too, and the Bible says to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. So we have to speak up for the little babies that can't speak for themselves. So America's still 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, 10, righteous men, not yet Babylon, the great America. Well, it's interesting, but that's what God says in Revelation 18. He says, "Come out from them." In fact, let's look at that. Good one, CF. Good one. Appreciate you bringing that up. Man, I love having these discussions, guys. I could go on all night, as you know I can. But let's look at this real quick. Revelation 18. Yeah, because this is what I eat, breathe, and think all day long. I wish I could do this more. So Revelation 18. Okay, so lament for Babylon. Okay, let's look at this. The kings of the earth who have committed fornication and live deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment. So the nuclear weapons, people are going to be afraid of that. If they get blown up, people aren't going to want to get close because that whole place has been radiated, right? So nobody wants to. They're afraid. They're afraid of that. Saying, "Alas, alas, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour, in 1 hour is thy judgment come." So that's how fast. How else are you going to destroy a place in 1 hour? A nuclear bomb makes sense. That's the thing that's going to take you out that quickly. And the merchants, or nuclear bombs, I should say, it's, thousands, how many, 20,000 or 80, how many, 120, what is it, 210,000 warheads or something pointed at us? I forget what the number is. You can correct me on that, but I know Russia has tons. I'm sure China has tons. Everybody has them, but, well, everybody who has them pointed at somebody, let's put it that way. But Russia has, I want to say 210,000 or something like that. And I would imagine most of those will be pointed at us. So I don't think any of us are really going to make it out if they launch them all. Now, if they're strategic and they're just trying to hit, but once you launch them, then the other side's going to launch them. So then you're going to launch more, and you're going to launch. It's like you just got to launch them all, I would think. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. That's why it makes more sense to do the take out the internet, to do the. They can also launch an EMP. EMP is the other thing. Take out all the electrical grid. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen, the purple and silk and scarlet, and all thine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory. See, that's all the design side of it. Now, we might not have all the materials. We get those from other places, but America is the one prompting all that design and all those. In the majority sense, I'm not saying other countries don't produce these things as well, but in terms of being known for producing all the products, we're very consumer. I guess the consumerism is what stands out to me here. And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, fine flour, wheat and beasts and sheep and horses, chariots, slaves, souls of men. The souls of men, that's kind of an intense thing. Wow. We're even selling the souls of men. And the fruits of thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which are made by rich shall stand far off for the fear of her torment. They'll stand far off for the fear of her torment. That's interesting. Why would you stand far away because you're afraid that nuclear fallout's going to reach you? So nobody's going to come in to rescue us, guys. Nobody's going to rescue the Americans. No one's going to come and rescue you. They're all running the other way. They're standing far off because they're afraid of that torment. They're afraid because you know why? Anybody who survives those bombs is going to be tormented big time because radiation fallout is no joke. It's about the worst way to die. Whew. If you've seen The Day After, that gives you a taste, but that was back in the 80s, I think. But there have been other movies that kind of show it too. But man, oh man, intense. And saying, "Alas, alas, the great city which was clothed with fine linen, purple and scarlet." Now, purple and scarlet is also used to describe what I think the woman, the harlot is riding. Is used too, and it's also the Jesuit. I think it's a Jesuit color that you see in the Vatican and so forth. So it's kind of interesting. That's why some people think it's talking about the Vatican, but maybe the Vatican's part of that too. You think America's the only place that's going to be bombed? They could bomb the Vatican too. Could be part of that. So I don't know. It's interesting. It could be the whole network. Is it one city or is it more like a one system? Is it the West? Is it considered the West? Maybe the West is the one city. And in 1 hour, so great riches has come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company of ships and sailors and many a trade by the sea stood far off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? Now, I started reading this because CF mentioned something I wanted to bring up. Yeah. Okay, so let me go back to the beginning. Oh, this part. He says, where he says in Revelation, he says, I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her. Let me put this in a more modern vernacular here. Verse 4 says, then I heard another voice say, come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues, for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. That's our parzo, guys. All right, so he's calling us out before he brings the destruction of it falling in 1 hour, right? Let's see. He had great splendor, fallen, has become a dwelling, a haunt for demons. I mean, we've kind of fallen before we've been destroyed, right? There's a fallen and there's the destruction itself. But it says to come out of her. So it's interesting to think about, because CF was making the point that, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, you won't destroy the city if there's still 10 righteous people. I think he's making that point. And yes, which I think is a great point for the Arpazo, actually. So thank you for bringing that up, because it makes the point that, yes, you're right. Just as in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham said, you're still going to destroy the city even if there's righteous people there. What if you find 10 people? He started at 50 and worked his way down to 10, and by then God left. He's like, okay, don't ask anymore. He didn't say that, but that's the feeling you get. Like, okay, 10, that's it. But in any case, because he found Lot and his family, and they were less than 10. So technically, God could have destroyed it even with Lot in there, but God had mercy on Lot because it was 10 is where he stopped it. So he could have said, well, there's less than 10. I mean, yeah, it's Lot and his family, but that's less than 10. So if he was just playing the numbers and didn't really care about people, but he still cared, right? He cares about every last soul. So he goes in there. He wants all men to become saved and come to a full knowledge of the truth, and doesn't want anyone to be lost. So he goes in there, gets Lot, his wife, and his daughters, right? Out of there. Yeah. And takes them out. The angels get them out. So even they were arpazoed, you could say. Even they were snatched out of the city before the destruction came. So that's what you see here. He's saying, come out of her. Don't share in her sins anymore. So you will not receive any of her plagues, for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. So God's about to bring the judgment. He pulls us out, and then boom. So you could argue, whether it happens right at the same time or whether it's in that 7-year span, because we've got some time there between Revelation 6, where we see that matching up, and then we also have Revelation 18, where we finally have the destruction of Babylon, and then God returns. So it could be at the end, the nuclear bomb may be the final sort of last destruction on Babylon before Jesus finally comes back to end the war and to reign for 1,000 years. Not just where he receives us into heaven. So that could have already happened. He could have already taken everybody out of Babylon 7 years ago by the time the nuclear bombs go off. So interesting to think about. But thanks for bringing that up. Really good point. Mystery Babylon in Revelation. America's Mystery Babylon. She sits on many waters, and the world drinks of her wine and iniquity. First, we will be a cyber attack to confuse, then an MPT, then a full-scale attack, and we won't be able to respond. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, that's what I was just sharing. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That order of events does make sense, because it's kind of like, take away our communications, take away the internet, so now we're kind of all alone and isolated. We can't use our cell phones anymore. We can't use the internet. Oh no, what will we do without our streaming channels? And so we're just kind of desperate, sitting there in the dark. And then they take out the electricity altogether, take out the whole grid. And now what do we do? Now we've basically gone back to the caveman era. And boy, at that point, you sure hope you stored up some water and some food and some other things to help you during that time. And then whammo, you're done. So hopefully God will take us out before all that happens. That would be nice. But I think CF's point is right. It's like he has to take us at some point before bringing his wrath, at least allowing his wrath. Now, that's not necessarily the same as man's wrath, though. So if man's launching nuclear weapons, you may die in that nuclear destruction. It's possible. Now, he may take you out first, but remember, it's a difference between God's wrath and tribulation, right? Tribulation is just the time of struggle, the Jacob's trouble, but God's wrath is a different thing. God's not going to bring his wrath on his children, but he may allow man to bring his wrath on other children. Like in Ukraine right now, for example, there's people being killed who, aren't necessarily worthy of death, and then they don't, well, we're all worthy of death. The wages of sin is death. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just innocent, quote unquote, people that are just living their lives and they're getting killed. So, it's happening to some, I would imagine, or being raped and pillaged and plundered and all kinds of other things. So that doesn't mean evil won't happen, I guess is what I'm saying. God's wrath is different than man's evil. So just something to keep straight there. The Statue of Liberty is the harlot. Her flame is the illumination of knowledge, Illuminati. That's interesting. Not Harley harlot. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Well, guys, some great points. Ended up going 3 hours again tonight. But you know what? I enjoy this. I like it. I like sharing. And, I take a lot of time putting all this together. And so I want to take time to share it too. So I just feel like I don't care if it's 3 hours long. And maybe I know a lot of people won't watch it because it's that long. But hopefully those who really care will and get some more out of it. Because a lot of times you watch short video clips and that's nice. But that's great if you just kind of want an overall of what's going on. But if you kind of want to dig into something, you need to take some time with it and really get into it. So I like it. I enjoy it. I hope you do too. I do believe we're raptured out before all this stuff hits the fan. Our being taken will trigger the stuff hitting the fan. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's what we see in Revelation 6 where all these things happen. Then Jesus appears and they say, hide us from the face of he who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, right? So, yes, I think it is a trigger. It's the trigger events, and that's what we see also in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, when the armies are surrounding, Ezekiel 38, where the armies are surrounding. And then the war continues after that. Then the 7-year tribulation begins. And so you're still going to have the 7 years of war going on as they're living off the fuel, as it says in Ezekiel 39, for 7 years. But yeah, it makes sense that the apostle that Jesus describes in Matthew 24, where he gathers his elect from both heaven and earth, so meaning he's gathering them both from the grave, he's taking them from heaven, putting them in their bodies, so they're raising from the grave, and also those who are living on the earth as well, and taking them up to be with him in heaven. Peace and safety then, boom, sudden destruction. Right, and that's what they're saying now. They're saying peace and safety. I mean, that's what they're saying here in America. Oh, you have nothing to fear for nuclear, don't worry about nuclear war. That's what they're telling us, right? So when they're telling you that, that's when you should be concerned. When they're telling you not to be concerned, that's when you should be concerned. So when they're saying peace and safety, that's when sudden destruction comes. So that's what they're saying now. They're saying, oh, don't worry about it. You're fine. Peace and safety, peace and security. That's what they're always talking about, right? Everything's fine. Nothing to see here, nothing to see. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Let's see. Comment line for SCOTUS. Call demand to hear all election fraud cases. Amen, bro. CF put a number there, and can't talk too much about that, unfortunately, here. But look at that number, and sounds like a good plan, what he suggests doing there. But can't say anything more about it, unfortunately, here, because we're occupied. We're occupied by the devil. We're in the devil's grip right now. And so free speech is not so free anymore, where you can speak your mind. But I appreciate you sharing it. And, yeah, definitely, they do need to hear those things. Unfortunately, they're not going to listen because they're part of it. They're part of the cabal. They sold us out along with everybody else back then. And they all threw us under the bus. And that's why we're in this situation, because they all sold us out for a bowl of soup, just like Esau selling his birthright for a bowl of soup to his brother Jacob. Same thing. So, but still good to do anyway. Oops. Yeah, I know. Well, I just can't say it. I mean, you said it, but I can't say it. So I'll just leave it at that. Peace and safety, then the rapture, then the sudden destruction. Amen, bro. Amen, George. Guys, thanks so much for sharing tonight. Thanks so much for joining me for this live broadcast every Sunday night. If you'd like to see more, please help support us through our website, or not through our website, actually through Zelle and PayPal, love@mikayoministries.com. Appreciate your support, and I could come back and do more of this with you. I'm glad that God is allowing me to do it on Sunday. I want to give back to God as my ministry for him, and I want to serve God in this way. If you can still support us, even for Sunday nights, that would be great. If you could definitely subscribe and like our videos, because that helps us reach more people, and watch more of our videos, because that also goes toward the watch hours also add up for the algorithms and all that. So we appreciate all that. And thank you for your comments. Thanks for your participation tonight. Thanks for George for kicking off the discussion tonight. Thanks for John joining us, and Brett. And I appreciate Jilliana stopping by as well. Appreciate that. And Brian, it's good to have you here. Better late than never, so it's good to have you on board. Noah, bro, thanks for stopping by. Thanks to CF for joining us as well. And guys, it's coming. But you know what's cool is that we kind of know what to look for. So that even in the darkest hour, if they take out the internet, if they take out the electrical, even if they take us out, we know what we're waiting for. We know what we're looking forward to. So it can kind of keep us going, keep our own oil burning in our own lamps while we wait in the darkness of the world. We can still have light in our hearts as we wait for that glorious day. And we know what to look for. We know, get a crank radio. I need to get one myself, but to get a crank radio that doesn't require electricity, so you can stay tuned to see when they surround Jerusalem. And just in case the electrical's out, you have a crank radio that you can use that's hand-powered, manual-powered, that you can find out when they surround Jerusalem. So you can be listening for that news to come in case we can't see it online. So something to think about. And get prepared. Do physical things for preparation and spiritual things. Call out to God. Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The promises for you and your children, and for all who are far off, for all whom the Lord our God will call, which includes everyone. Save yourselves from this corrupt generation. That's what I recommend. And guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. I love you guys. I thank you for all your comments and encouragement. And as the world gets darker, his light that shines through us gets brighter. Amen, Brian. Thanks for that thought. Ham radio with solar power. Yeah, solar power is the other thing. Get a solar generator. You can get one for about $250, like a Jackery or one of those online, and a solar panel for about $100. Now, that's a real low-level one. It's not going to power much, but it's power. It's something. So, there's obviously more expensive ones that can power a lot better than that. And but, yeah, definitely get some solar stuff, too, so you can use the power of the sun, harness the power of the sun during these times also. Hopefully they won't block out the sun with the nuclear bombs, as it describes in Revelation, where the sun turns to sackcloth like ash. And so we may not have a sun to power with, but something to consider there anyway. But guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for your comments tonight. Thanks for the encouragement. Let me know your thoughts and comments more as the week goes on. Feel free to send me your thoughts and comments as well. If something hits you or you see something, I'd be happy to throw it in the video. And I know some of you have wanted to do shows and stuff. This is what I'm able to do right now, is just dedicate Sunday evening to this. It's my ministry for the Lord. I feel like I want to do my part and give back, and I hope you're inspired to do that as well. Whatever it is, whatever God puts on your heart, I just hope you're doing something. Do something for God every week. I kind of spend my whole week accumulating thoughts and things, and God gives it to me, and He even speaks through my wife and other people, and they give me ideas, and I go, okay, yeah, that's great. And I put it into this, and I present it to you guys. What is God saying to you? What is He telling you to do right now? It might be something completely different. It might not be anything related to this kind of thing, but what is God putting on your heart? Do something for the Lord that's bringing people to Christ, that's bringing people to God, that's encouraging people, that's helping people learn about these end times, or learn about Jesus' return, learn about the truth of the Bible. Do something for God. Don't just wait for this to happen, okay? And that's something, if we've learned anything in the last 6 months to 10 years, 20 years, however long people have been waiting, 2,000 years, waiting for the Lord to return, is that don't just sit around waiting, As God says, it'll be good if He finds that servant doing His will when He returns. So be the servant that God finds doing the will of God when He returns, okay? Don't wait. Don't just sit around and go, any minute now Jesus is going to come. It's like, don't get selfish about it, I guess. Don't get selfish about it. Don't get self-focused about it. Don't get selfish. Don't be like, I'm just going to sit here in my little bunker and wait for God, because that's being selfish, It's like, be selfless. Take up your cross daily, deny yourself, and follow Him, and do what He called us to do. So we got to go out there, and we got to do something to help other people learn the truth about God. It's that simple. So that when he comes back, he's like, amen, you're doing my will. That's what I wanted to find you doing. And so that's what we need to do, guys. Don't fall into the thing, oh, he's a long way. He hasn't come. It's a long way off. I guess I'm just going to forget about this end time stuff or whatever. Guys, it's been the end times for 2,000 years. We're just one more generation looking at the end times, okay? So we happen to be, it seems, the generation who's honored to have this place in history to be among those who are at the actual end times. Now, could this all turn around and everybody gets along and it's kumbaya and we start all over again and have a big revival and we end up not being the end of the world? Anything's possible, but it's highly unlikely. I think if you're looking at all the signs and everything that's in Scripture and everything that's happening, it's pretty much a done deal for it to be now. So that being the case, it's pretty special that we get to be here. Because even if it wasn't, whether it's now or not, or we were to live the rest of our days on this earth and die and go to heaven, either way, guys, we should always be watching. We should pray and keep watch, right, for the Lord. He told his disciples, I'll be coming soon. And they thought, man, he's going to come back in our lifetime. And you could say, well, Jesus, why are you deceiving us? What's going on here? Now, obviously, God's not deceiving us, but I'm playing the advocate, I guess, or the other side of the coin, or what we all kind of feel sometimes. It's like, God, what's going on? We wrestle with God. We're like, God, why are you doing this to us? And it's because we wouldn't learn all this stuff if He didn't. We wouldn't care about any of this stuff. We wouldn't be looking at this stuff. We'd be like going out watching movies and playing video games. We'd be doing whatever. We wouldn't be seeking God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength if there wasn't this imminency, if God's going to come any minute. He could come back today. Oh, we got to be ready. Got oil in your lamp. Are you which widows? Are you the 5 widows sleeping, or are you the 5 widows that are awake and alert and ready to go? If we didn't feel like, man, this is the end times, and probably, think about how many people were saved during Hitler's time, because they thought, oh man, he's the Antichrist, this is the end, and he's putting his mark on everybody. And it works to a goal, where people are saved, souls are saved as a result. And that's the goal, guys. So it's not to deceive us. It's not to make us feel like, hey, man, we got ripped off. I thought this was the end times. What happened? Generation after generation has thought it was the end times, and it wasn't, right? So we could be another generation like that. But I don't think so, based on everything that we see. But even if it was just like another test, and like, oh, okay, I guess life's going to go on, and we're just going to get old and die and go to heaven that way. The point is, are you looking for God? Are you seeking God? Are you getting to know God? Are you digging into His Word? I've learned scriptures that I never knew my whole Christian life, and I've read the Bible many times, but I know them in a new way now that I'd read them before, but I never knew them. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm knowing the Bible in a way that I didn't know before, and so for that I'm grateful. It's awesome. Do I wish Jesus had come a long time ago and we're not still here waiting? Yeah, of course. But I'm grateful for what I learn every day while I'm still here. And I think that's how we got to look at it. And we got to think, okay, what does God want me to do while I'm still here? How can I still affect the world and help other people in this world while I'm still on it? So, George telling me to warn people, be a watchman in the wall. It is the end. Parable of the fig tree. We are that generation 80 years from the generation of Israel. Yeah, there's just so much. There's so many things that are being fulfilled right now, and I've shared a lot about it in the videos on this channel. And there's plenty of people have been sharing about it. There's plenty pointing to this time period. What's really cool, though, what I'm really excited about is what I'm learning about the signs to look for, because now we have some specific things we can look for, other than just like, it's this date. No, it's this date. Now it's this date, and that gets old real fast. It's like, okay, yeah, we've done the date thing. It's no one knows the day or the hour, right? But there are signs we can look for that we go, okay, Russia's on the move. Now they're moving to Ukraine. Oh, now they're teaming up with Turkey. Interesting. Okay, now they're coming against Israel. They're not happy with Israel doing that. Okay, wow. So when we know the Bible, we know how the scriptures are fulfilled, and I think that to me has become more fulfilling than the dates. I like the dates too. I want to still look at the calendar and look at the dates, but the dates, they come and they go, and we get all built up for one date and then it passes. But these events are something that last, right? These events happen. These are real events. Like you said, Israel being born in a day. That's a real event. It's biblical. It happened. It was prophesied in Isaiah, and it happened. on May 14th, 1948. So that's a real date. You can hang on to that. The eclipses and the solar eclipses and the blood moons and things that have happened. Those are real things that have happened. And there've been other things that fall on dates as well. I'm not against dates. I'm just saying, don't just cling to dates, because dates in a way are they're meaningful, but also empty at the same time, because what we're really putting our heart in is the scriptures, is the word of God being fulfilled. And in that case, when we see those things fulfilled, that's what Jesus said, hey, when this date comes by. No, he didn't say that. He says, when you see these things happen, then you'll know your redemption. Look up, because your redemption is drawing near. And so I think that's where we got to get excited, when we start to see the things happen that God prophesied would happen. And the dates just kind of go along with that and kind of help corroborate that and help us to understand the timing of it, because it has to happen within that time frame. And I think that's what makes it really exciting too. Let's see. The increase in knowledge, lawlessness will abound. That which once was right was called wrong. The persecution of Christianity were wars and rumors of wars, pestilence. Amen. Guys, this has been a great discussion tonight. I appreciate all your thoughts and comments. Please continue to bring them during the week, and I'm looking forward to coming back with you next week. It's been a pleasure, as always, and I think I'm just going to wrap it up here for now with you all, but I thank you. Like I said, I could go on another 3 hours easily, because I love talking about this stuff, but I want people to actually watch this video, and probably a 6-hour video is a real turn off if 3 isn't bad enough. So anyway, but hopefully if you've seen some of my videos, you kind of know there's stuff in there. So put them on fast, play them on fast if you have to, but get the content, because the content is what really matters. Okay. I enjoy taking time to share it all with you, but get the content, because there's a lot of great content out there. Love you guys. Thanks for stopping by tonight. I pray God is with you, and that you walk with God, that you're with God. Walk with the Lord, right? What does it say in Micah 6? What does the Lord require? But to love God, act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Humbly, that's the key word. Walk with God, and make sure it's humbly, that we're not haughty with God. We don't think we know more than God. Sometimes I know I have discussions with God, and I'm like, I get upset and I'm angry, and I'm like, well, God, why is it like this and why isn't it like that? But at the end of the day, you come back around and you realize God loves you. Don't worry, be happy. As it says in Psalms, he's like, after that I came into your temple and I realized, amen. I shouldn't be so worked up. You're God, and all's well. So, amen. Amen, guys. I love you guys. Thank you for all tuning in tonight, and thanks for watching this video. Thanks for subscribing and liking. That helps us reach more people. And if you can help support us beyond that, we appreciate that as well. We love you guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. All the best to you.